I didn't even see the blade that killed me, but I clearly saw the hands that pushed me into it. My royal prince, the man I swore a blood oath to protect, grabbed my shoulders and shoved me backward directly into the enemy assassins just to buy himself 3 seconds to run away. His face didn't even show a hint of guilt. He just turned his back and fled, while cold steel pierced my chest, my lungs, and my throat. I spit up a mouthful of blood, choking on my own devotion. That was my last memory as a human. Now my awareness slowly stitches itself back together, but everything is wrong. I don't have eyes. I don't have hands. I try to take a breath, but I don't have lungs. Instead, I feel the agonizing sensation of dampness spreading across a flat, decaying surface. I try to move my head, but I'm completely immobile. Then I feel a sudden, sharp impact followed by the scraping of rusty metal. I force my awareness toward the sensation. A young girl with dirt smudged on her cheeks is standing on a wobbly stool, aggressively hammering a piece of scrap wood into my surface. She misses the nail, hits her thumb, and sucks in a sharp breath of cold air. But she doesn't stop. She grabs the hammer and strikes again until the scrap wood is secured tight. It's only then that it finally hits me. I'm a roof. I've been reborn as the rotting wooden roof of a pathetic slum shack. The girl steps down from the stool, wiping sweat from her forehead. She looks up at me and smiles. There she mutters to herself, "At least the rain won't get on the bed tonight." I watch her from my strange, disembodied perspective. Her clothes are nothing but patched rags, and the room she's living in is basically a stiff breeze away from collapsing completely. But she still took the time to fix me. In my past life, I gave everything to a prince who treated my life like disposable trash. Now, I'm just a pile of rotting lumber, and this destitute girl is treating me like I actually matter. Right at that moment, a mechanical voice chimes directly in my consciousness. Ding. Incorrect evolution system binding complete. Host detected as non-biological structure. Modifying skill trees to fit architectural parameters. A translucent blue screen pops up in my mind. I check the interface. Name Jack. Species dilapidated slum shack. Status heavily decayed. Energy 10. Ambient mana 0. I stare at the screen. I really am a building. I open the evolution paths, expecting to see some kind of combat skills or magic attacks, but it's completely empty of anything organic. There are no sword techniques or aura manuals. Instead, the interface is filled with architectural blueprints and material upgrades. Fortified walls, trapdoors, arrow slits, structural integrity boosts. I'm literally a house, but I'm not totally helpless. I notice a flashing red warning on my system panel. Alert, main support beam at 12% integrity. Collapse imminent. If I collapse, I die again, and I'll probably crush the girl in the process. I don't hesitate. I select the main support beam on the holographic blueprint and hit upgrade. Ding, 10 energy points consumed. Upgrading decaying pine to solid oak. Instantly, a deep, resonant groaning sound echoes through the shack. The rotting, splintered pillar holding up the center of the room rapidly shifts in color. The moisture is driven out of the wood, and the fragile fibers instantly harden into incredibly dense, dark oak. The entire shack stabilizes with a heavy thud. The constant creaking that had been vibrating through my frame vanishes completely. I feel solid. Ding. First structural upgrade complete. Passive skill unlocked. Structural perception. My senses immediately expand. Before, I could only feel things touching my roof, but now my awareness floods the entire interior of the shack. I can hear, see, and feel every square inch of the room like it's an extension of my own body. I watch the girl jump slightly at the sound of the beam shifting. She walks over, taps the newly formed oak pillar, and her eyes widen in confusion. She clearly doesn't understand how rotting wood just turned into pristine oak, but she doesn't have time to think about it. She grabs a worn-out satchel, wraps a ragged shawl around her shoulders, and hurries out the front door for work. I learn her name is Elizabeth from a piece of discarded mail on the floor. I settle in, testing the limits of my structural perception. But 2 hours later, the front door gets kicked open. 2 men walk into my shack. One is an older guy with a desperate, weaselly face and clothes smelling like cheap booze. The other is a massive, heavily scarred brute wearing the leather jacket of a local gang enforcer. I immediately focus my perception on them. The weaselly guy is Thomas, Elizabeth's uncle. He looks around the shack and spits on the floor. "She's not here," Thomas says, his voice dripping with annoyance. "She works at the laundry until sunset." The brute, a gang enforcer named Crag, crosses his arms and sneers at the rotting walls. "This place is a dump. You dragged me out here for this? Are you sure she's gonna be alone?" Thomas lets out a sleazy laugh. "Yeah, the stupid girl thinks I'm out looking for a factory job. She has no idea I owe your boss money. Just take her tonight. The Red Snake Gang can sell her to the underground market, and my gambling debts to the boss are completely wiped clean. Deal?" Crag stares at Thomas for a second, then pulls a small leather pouch from his belt and tosses it onto the table. The heavy clinking of silver coins echoes in the room. Deal. 50 silver for the girl. Your debt is clear. But if you're lying and she doesn't show up, I'm taking your kidneys instead. Crag doesn't even bother waiting for a response. He turns around and walks out the door. Thomas frantically grabs the bag of silver, his eyes gleaming with sheer greed. He practically skips out the door right after Crag, leaving the shack dead silent. Up in the roof, my awareness flares with absolute killing intent. I listen to the echo of those coins and I feel sick. Thomas just sold his own niece to a gang to cover a gambling debt. The familiar sting of betrayal washes over me. It's exactly like the prince, selling out someone who trusts you just to save your own pathetic skin. I won't let it happen again. I swear it. If I couldn't protect myself in my past life, I am damn well going to protect Elizabeth in this one. I pull up my system interface. Energy 0. I need to figure out how to gain points and fast. I check the system logs. Energy is generated by absorbing sunlight and ambient mana through my external structure. I immediately focus all my attention on my wooden shingles. I don't have lungs or a heart, but I can feel the intense midday sun beating down on my roof. I mentally activate the solar absorption protocol. Slowly, painfully slowly, the interface begins to update. +1 energy. +1 energy, it's a grueling process. For hours, I just sit there in silence, soaking in every single drop of sunlight I can manage. I watch the sun track across the sky, my energy counter slowly ticking upward. By late afternoon, I hit 20 points. By early evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, the counter finally clicks over to 50 energy points. Ding! 50 points accumulated. Tier 1 defense catalog unlocked. I immediately open the menu. I don't have time to browse through aesthetics. I need raw lethal utility. I scan the blueprints and lock onto 2 specific upgrades. The first is an entryway reinforcement. It costs 30 points to convert a standard wooden door frame and door into solid reinforced iron. The second is a threshold trap mechanism. It costs 20 points to convert the floorboards right inside the doorway into a pressure-triggered drop trap leading into the crawl space below. Total cost, 50 points. Exactly what I have. I purchase the blueprints and load them into my system, holding the activation command in standby. I'm not going to upgrade right now. If Crag shows up and sees an iron door on a rotting slum shack, he'll know something is wrong and call for backup. I need the element of surprise. I have to wait until he's fully committed. Night falls completely. The slums go dark. About an hour later, I hear heavy footsteps approaching. Crag is back, and this time he brought 2 other gang members with him. They walk right up to my front door and stand on the porch. Easy money tonight, boys, Crag mutters, cracking his knuckles. You 2 grab her arms the second she walks in. I'll cover her mouth so she doesn't scream. We throw her in the wagon, and we're drinking at the tavern by midnight. The 2 goons nod, pulling out dirty rags and cheap daggers. They hide in the shadows right next to the porch, waiting like vultures. 10 minutes later, I see Elizabeth walking down the dirt path. She's moving slowly, looking completely exhausted from working all day. She has a small loaf of stale bread in her hands, probably her dinner. She walks up the steps of the porch and reaches for the door handle. The second her hand touches the knob, Crag steps out of the shadows. "Hey there, little lady," he says, a disgusting smirk plastered on his face. Elizabeth's face drains of all color. She gasps, dropping her bread in the dirt, and stumbles backward against the door. But the door is locked. She's trapped on the porch. Crag lunges forward, his massive hands reaching right for her throat. That's the moment. I trigger the system upgrade. Ding. 50 energy points consumed. Instant structural shift activated. Crag's hand is just inches from Elizabeth's neck when my rotting wooden front door instantly shifts. The wood violently hardens, turning deep black. It expands with a screeching metallic grind, transforming into a massive 2-inch thick slab of solid iron. The door slams open violently, hitting Crag directly in the chest and sending him stumbling back. But he's stubborn. He regains his balance and throws his hand onto the iron door frame to push his way inside. I don't even give him a fraction of a second. I violently slam the iron door shut on its own hinges with the sheer force of a hydraulic press. Crack. Crag's scream tears through the quiet slum. The heavy iron door effortlessly severs 4 fingers from his right hand. Blood sprays across the iron surface as the severed digits drop to the dirt. Ah. My hand. Crag shrieks, falling to his knees and clutching his bleeding stump. The 2 goons freeze in absolute terror. They have no idea how a door just moved on its own, or where the iron came from, but their gang instincts kick in. They draw their daggers and step directly onto the threshold to grab Elizabeth, who is paralyzed with shock. Bad move. I trigger the second upgrade. The wooden floorboards right beneath the 2 goons instantly detach from the joists, With a loud snap, the floor simply vanishes under their feet. The goons don't even have time to yell before they plummet straight down into the deep, dark crawl space beneath the shack. I immediately snap the floorboards back into place, locking them in. Muffled shouts and the sound of fists banging against the floor come from below, but the reinforced wood doesn't budge an inch. They're completely trapped. Crag is still on his knees, his face pale with agony and sheer panic. He looks at the iron door, then looks down at the solid floor that just swallowed his men. He finally realizes this isn't a normal house. He scrambles to his feet, turning around to sprint away into the darkness. You think you can just leave? I let out a cold, non-existent laugh in my mind. I'm not letting a single one of these rats walk away. I immediately focus on the front porch overhang. It's barely holding together as it is. I forcefully disengage the rusted nails holding the support struts. The wooden pillars buckle instantly. The entire heavy, rotting roof of the porch collapses downward in a freefall. The massive structure smashes directly onto Crag's back before he can take 3 steps. He is sent flying like a broken kite, face planting into the dirt before the heavy lumber pins him completely to the ground. He lets out one pathetic wheeze before the weight knocks him unconscious. The ambush is over in less than 10 seconds. The yard is completely silent except for the muffled yelling from the crawl space. Elizabeth is still standing on the single unbroken piece of the porch, staring wide-eyed at her transformed home. Her hands are shaking and her chest is heaving. She looks at the severed fingers on the iron door frame, then down at the unconscious Crag pinned under the collapsed roof. She has absolutely no idea what just happened, but she knows she's safe. Inside my system interface, a new prompt flashes brightly. Ding. Hostile entities trapped within structural boundaries. Residual mana detected from gang members. Do you wish to initiate structural drain to fuel the next evolution tier? I look at the interface, calculating my next move. I'm not just going to be a shack anymore. I'm going to be a fortress. I confirm the prompt and begin draining their energy. The crawl space goes dead silent after a few minutes of muffled screaming. I don't feel an ounce of pity. In my past life, I bled out for a coward. Now I'm making sure the cowards bleed for me. Ding. System notification pops up. Residual mana extraction complete. 3 hostile entities neutralized. 150 energy points acquired. I check my status. The gang members are nothing but dried up husks under my floorboards now. Good riddance. Up in the main room, Elizabeth is still staring at the iron door and the severed fingers on the floor. Her face is pale, but she doesn't scream. She just takes a deep breath, grabs a rag, and starts scrubbing the blood off my floorboards. She realizes I'm not just a rotting pile of wood anymore. I'm actively protecting her. She finishes wiping the floor, places her hand flat against my newly formed oak support beam, and whispers, "Thank you." The absolute trust in her voice actually catches me off guard. No one ever thanked me for risking my life before. I swear right then and there, I'll turn this place into an impenetrable fortress for her. She walks outside, carefully stepping around the collapsed porch roof, and kneels next to Crag's unconscious body. She doesn't hesitate. She digs through his pockets and pulls out the leather pouch of silver coins Thomas sold her out for. But she finds something else too. It's a small glowing red stone, a basic fire attribute beast core. She walks back inside and sets the coin pouch on the table, but she places the red stone directly onto my wooden floor. It's like she instinctively knows I need it. The second the stone touches my floorboards, my system interface lights up with a massive red warning. Ding. Foreign high-density energy source detected. Assimilating. The stone dissolves into raw red light and sinks right into my foundation. Ding. 50 energy points acquired. Elemental upgrade path unlocked. Fire affinity at 1%. I look at my total energy. 200 points sitting right in my bank. It's time to spend it all. I immediately open the Tier 2 fortification catalog. The wooden walls of this shack are practically paper. One good kick from an aura user and they'd splinter. I select the primary exterior upgrade. Ding. 100 energy points consumed, converting rotting pine exterior to reinforced limestone blocks. The entire structure groans. Elizabeth gasps and steps back as the flimsy wooden walls around her rapidly expand, hardening into thick, heavy gray stone. The drafts instantly stop. The room goes completely pitch black for a second before I use the remaining 80 points. Ding. 80 energy points consumed. Installing compressed air spike traps within all window frames. The empty window cutouts suddenly line themselves with hidden retractable steel spikes completely concealed within the stone framework. I test my structural perception. I can feel the tension in the springs just waiting to be triggered. I am a literal death trap now. The rest of the night passes in complete silence. Elizabeth sleeps soundly on her miserable little cot for the first time in her life, knowing she's safe. But I don't sleep. I just wait. As soon as the sun comes up, I feel heavy footsteps vibrating through the dirt path leading to my yard. My structural awareness flares. It's Thomas, and he didn't come alone. He's walking next to a tall, scarred man wearing premium leather armor and carrying a massive broadsword. That has to be Silas, the leader of the Red Snake Gang. Behind them are 5 heavily armed thugs. They walk into the yard expecting to find Elizabeth tied up and ready to be sold. Instead, Silas stops dead in his tracks. His eyes widen. He stares at the thick limestone walls where a rotting wooden shack used to be just yesterday. What the hell is this, Thomas? Silas snarls, grabbing Thomas by the collar. You said she lived in a slum shack. This is a fortified stone blockhouse. Thomas is completely bewildered. His face drains of all color. I swear to you, boss, it was just wood yesterday. I don't know what happened. Maybe she hired a construction mage overnight? Silas shoves him away and steps closer to the yard. That's when he sees the collapsed porch roof and the massive pool of dried blood in the dirt. He kicks the broken lumber aside and finds Craig's crushed body underneath. Silas's face twists into pure rage. He killed Craig. The thugs behind him immediately draw their weapons. They can't believe it. Craig was a level 10 enforcer. The thugs start whispering. Who could have done this? Is there a high-level mercenary hiding inside? Thomas is shaking like a leaf. He practically runs up to my front door to prove he isn't playing games. I'll drag her out myself, boss. I swear she's just a weak little girl. He reaches his grubby hand out and grabs the handle of my reinforced iron door. He has no idea what he just touched. I immediately tap into the fire affinity I unlocked from the beast core. I channel all of the residual heat directly into the iron door panel. The metal instantly flashes glowing red hot. Thomas doesn't even have time to register the heat before his flesh starts sizzling. Ah, my hands. Thomas shrieks at the top of his lungs. He violently yanks his hands back, leaving a layer of his own skin completely melted onto my doorknob. He falls backward into the dirt, clutching his blistered, smoking palms, crying like a pathetic child. Thugs step back in shock. Magic! The door is enchanted. Silas grits his teeth. He thinks there's a mage hiding inside the house using fire magic on the door. He pulls out his broadsword and points it directly at my stone walls. Burn it down. I don't care who's inside. Throw the oil torches through the windows and smoke them out. 3 of the thugs immediately pull out flasks of lamp oil and light their torches. They sprint directly toward my open window frames, completely underestimating the situation. They think they're just attacking a building. They have no idea the building is attacking them. They step right up to the stone ledges and raise their arms to throw the torches. I don't give them a single second to breathe. I trigger the window spike traps. Ding! Compressed air mechanism released. Thunk, thunk, thunk. 3 massive, razor-sharp steel spikes shoot out from the concealed stone frames with the speed of a fired arrow. The spikes pierce clean through the chests of the 3 thugs before they can even blink. They don't even have time to scream. The impact lifts them off their feet, and they drop to the dirt, completely dead, their blood pooling against my limestone foundation. The torches drop from their hands and sputter out in the dirt. The remaining 2 thugs freeze completely. Their weapons shake in their hands. They look at the spikes, then look at Silas. Boss, we can't fight a house. We're getting slaughtered out here. Silas's face goes completely pale. He finally realizes this isn't just a fortified building. Thomas is still rolling in the dirt, screaming about his burned hands. Help me up. Someone get me out of here. He tries to crawl away, but I'm not done with him. I shift my focus down to my earthen foundation. I don't have earth magic yet, but I can manipulate the compacted dirt supporting my structure. I forcefully shift the soil directly underneath Thomas. The ground simply vanishes beneath him. Thomas yelps as he falls into a perfect sinkhole, sinking straight down up to his waist. Before he can try to pull himself out, I forcefully compact the dirt back together, locking him in place like he's stuck in solid concrete. He struggles frantically, but he can't move an inch. Right at that moment, the heavy iron door swings open. Elizabeth steps out onto the threshold. She's not hiding anymore. She looks down at her uncle, trapped in the dirt, crying like a stuck pig. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out the heavy leather pouch of silver coins. The same coins Thomas sold her life for. She tosses the bag right at his face. The heavy pouch smacks him in the forehead and bursts open, spilling silver coins all over the dirt. My debt is paid, Uncle, Elizabeth says, her voice completely cold. You sold me to the Red Snake Gang to cover your gambling losses. Now you can pay them back yourself. Thomas looks up at her, completely terrified. Elizabeth, please. Pull me out. They're going to kill me. You're my niece. How can you be so cruel? Cruel? I let out a mental scoff. He actually has the nerve to talk about cruelty after sending a gang to kidnap her. I don't even let Elizabeth answer. I constrict the soil around his trapped legs with maximum force. Crack. The sound of breaking bone echoes through the yard. Thomas lets out a blood-curdling scream as both of his legs snap under the immense pressure of the compacted earth. He slumps forward, completely immobilized and half-conscious from the pain. Silas watches the entire thing happen. He sees the stone walls, the trapdoors, the spike traps, and the ground itself coming alive to crush his men. His eyes dart around frantically. This isn't a mage. He suddenly realizes what he's dealing with. It's a mimic, a high-level architectural mimic. We're standing in its hunting ground. Run. Silas doesn't even bother trying to save his 2 remaining thugs. He turns his back and sprints down the dirt path as fast as his legs can carry him, completely abandoning Thomas and his dead men. The 2 thugs drop their weapons and run right after him, screaming in terror. The yard goes completely silent again. Elizabeth stands on the porch, looking at the dead bodies and her unconscious, crippled uncle trapped in the dirt. She doesn't look scared. She looks empowered. She knows I have her back. I immediately pull up my system interface. Ding! Hostile entities neutralized, commencing residual mana extraction from 3 fresh corpses. I feel the cold energy draining from the dead thugs outside my window. The energy points skyrocket. Plus 100, plus 200, plus 300. Ding, 300 energy points accumulated. Core system upgrading to level 2. A massive surge of power rushes through my entire foundation. The limestone walls thicken even further. The iron door gains a layer of reinforced plating. My structural perception expands, covering not just the inside of the house, but the entire 20-foot radius of the yard around me. Ding. Level 2 reached. Spatial expansion module unlocked. Host can now manipulate internal dimensions and alter floor plans. I stare at the prompt. This changes everything. I don't have to just upgrade the materials I already have. I can actually build new rooms out of thin air. I immediately activate the module. I focus on the back wall of the shack. Ding, 200 energy points consumed. Initiating structural expansion, the heavy limestone blocks at the back of the room suddenly grind and push outward. Elizabeth watches in absolute awe as the room literally stretches. New floorboards weave themselves into existence. A stone partition wall rises from the floor, perfectly dividing the newly expanded space into a secure secondary room. A heavy oak door forms right in the center of the partition. I just built her a real bedroom. No more sleeping in the main living area next to the front door. Elizabeth walks over and pushes the oak door open. She looks at the clean, enclosed space, and a massive smile spreads across her face. She turns around and looks at the iron front door. I'm going to the merchant district today. She bends down and starts scooping up the silver coins scattered around Thomas's unconscious body. I'm gonna buy the highest grade iron, beast cores, and runic metals I can find. We're gonna make you even stronger. She packs the silver into her satchel and steps out of my iron doorway, heading straight toward the city center. I check my system logs. Level 2 complete. Next evolution tier requires 1,000 energy points and a mid-tier elemental core. If the Red Snake Gang wants to come back and try their luck, they are more than welcome to bring me the materials themselves. I lock my iron door and shift my structural perception toward the city, waiting for her to return. Waiting for her to return doesn't mean I am completely blind to what she is doing. Ever since Elizabeth placed that first Fire Beast core directly onto my floorboards, a faint tether of ambient mana linked my core to her signature. It isn't a direct visual feed, but if I focus my structural perception through the connection, I can catch blurry flashes of her exact surroundings and hear the conversations happening right in front of her. Right now, I can see exactly what she is dealing with in the center of the bustling merchant district. She stands firmly in front of a heavily stocked supply vendor's stall, tightly gripping her satchel full of the silver coins she took from her traitorous uncle. The vendor is a tall, greasy-looking man with a horribly smug sneer plastered across his face. He takes one look at her ragged, patched-up clothes and immediately figures she is just a clueless slum girl he can easily scam. He carelessly slaps a heavy stack of raw steel plating and a dull brown, fist-sized lesser earth attribute mana crystal right onto his wooden counter. 10 silver coins for the lot, he says, leaning forward and crossing his arms like he is doing her a massive favor. These are premium imports straight from the capital's top forging guilds. You definitely won't find better quality anywhere in this miserable city. In my past life as a royal guard, I saw bottom-feeding merchants exactly like this guy every single day. They are nothing but parasites who prey on the weak and uninformed. The old Elizabeth, the scared little girl from yesterday, would have panicked, bowed her head, and handed over every single coin she had without a second thought. But this time, she doesn't even flinch. She leans right over the wooden counter, completely ignoring his cheap intimidation tactic, and runs her fingers over the adjacent goods he has displayed on the table. I spot the flaw the exact second she does. She doesn't just point at his items. She taps her finger aggressively against the crude maker's stamps hammered into the metal of his other wares. Premium imports? She says, her voice completely flat and dripping with absolute contempt. These stamps are fake. The ink is still bleeding into the iron grain and the guild crest is totally backwards. If I walk over and call the market guards right now to show them you are selling counterfeit guild goods to the public, they'll chop both your hands off before the sun even goes down. The vendor's face instantly drains of all color. He gasps, sucking in a breath of cold air like he just took a punch to the gut. The bystanders loitering around the surrounding stalls immediately stop what they are doing and start pointing and whispering. Did that little girl just say his goods are counterfeit? One of them mutters, "I totally knew this guy was a cheap scammer." Another replies, "He's totally busted. Get the guards over here." The vendor frantically waves his hands in the air, desperately trying to quiet the growing crowd. He looks at Elizabeth with pure panic flashing in his eyes. Okay, just keep your voice down," he hisses, rapidly sliding the stack of raw steel and the earth crystal across the counter toward her. 5 silver. Take the entire pile for 50% off and just get out of here before you ruin my business. Elizabeth doesn't smile. She doesn't gloat. She just casually tosses the 5 silver coins onto the table, scoops up her heavy materials, and turns around to head straight back to the slums. I feel a massive surge of pride vibrating through my thick limestone beams. She is finally learning exactly how this brutal world works. You don't ask people for respect or fairness. You find their weak point and you force them to give it to you. While I watch her navigate the winding dirt streets heading back toward my location, my structural perception suddenly pings with a massive red warning alert. Multiple hostile entities are rapidly entering my 20-foot perception radius. I immediately snap my focus completely back to my own physical foundation. Heavy, angry footsteps violently crunch against the dirt path right outside my reinforced iron door. It's Silas. The Red Snake gang leader actually came back for round 2, but this time he isn't dragging some low-level street thugs with him to do the dirty work. Standing right next to him is a tall, arrogant man wearing a premium red guild robe, holding a thick wooden staff topped with a glowing, oversized ruby. My system interface instantly flares to life and flags him. Target identified. Level 12 Pyromancer. Threat level elevated. Silas points his heavy broadsword directly at my solid limestone exterior. His eyes are bloodshot with pure rage. There it is, he snarls, spitting onto the dirt. The whole damn house is a mimic. It ate my men and crippled that idiot Thomas. Burn it to the ground. I want absolutely nothing left but ash. The pyromancer lets out a cold, mocking laugh, stepping forward with an incredibly arrogant smirk plastered across his face. "You paid me 50 gold coins just to deal with a building?" He sneers, completely underestimating the situation in front of him. A mimic is still just a low-tier monster, Silas. It doesn't matter how thick its walls are. Stone cracks under true heat. Watch and learn how a real professional handles pests. He doesn't even bother casting a basic defensive barrier around himself. He just raises his ruby staff, aggressively channels his mana pool, and unleashes a continuous roaring stream of concentrated fire directly at my front wall. The flames violently slam into my limestone exterior. The temperature outside spikes instantly. My system flashes a yellow structural warning as the intense heat desperately tries to penetrate my thick stone blocks. But I just let out a cold laugh in my mind. This idiot really thinks he can just stand there and melt me down. He has absolutely no idea I just unlocked the spatial expansion module a few hours ago. I don't even need to use water magic to stop his pathetic attack. I immediately access my internal floor plan interface. Ding. Spatial manipulation initiated. I forcefully shift the interior stone partition walls I just built for Elizabeth's bedroom, rapidly rearranging my entire inner layout to create a highly pressurized, narrow wind tunnel corridor leading straight from my front door cutout to my deeply sealed secondary room. I instantly pop my heavy iron door open just a fraction of an inch. Basic physics does the rest of the work. The massive pressure difference between the hot outside air and my sealed interior creates a violent, instantaneous vacuum effect. The roaring flames outside are instantly sucked straight into the narrow crack of my iron door, completely depriving the exterior of all oxygen. The fire gets violently dragged into my internal stone corridor and harmlessly dissipates against my thick, oxygen-starved limestone walls. The pyromancer's massive stream of fire simply snuffs out mid-air like a pathetic, blown-out candle. The smug smile completely freezes on his face. His eyes widen in absolute shock. What kind of magic is this? He stammers, frantically looking at his glowing staff like it is completely broken. It just swallowed my flames. It ate my fire. I don't give him a single second to recover his composure. I immediately shift my focus to the compacted dirt directly beneath his expensive leather boots. Ding. Earthen foundation manipulation activated. The ground beneath the pyromancer simply vanishes into thin air. He doesn't even have time to scream before he drops straight down into a perfectly formed 15-foot sinkhole. I don't just leave him trapped in the dirt like I did with Thomas. I use my spatial expansion module to rapidly form a solid limestone holding cell directly around him deep underground. He hits the hard stone floor with a heavy thud, spitting up a mouthful of blood as his ruby staff clatters away into the darkness. He looks up at the ceiling of my internal cell, his face completely pale with absolute terror. "Let me out," he screams, desperately slamming his fists against my impenetrable stone walls. "Do you have any idea who I am? My guild will tear this entire slum apart block by block. I don't care about his guild. I don't care about his ridiculous threats. In my past life, arrogant royals talked exactly like this right before they cowardly handed me over to the enemy." I forcefully shift the internal limestone walls of his cell. They grind together with a deafening, sickening crunch, violently collapsing directly inward. The pyromancer's arrogant screams are cut abruptly short. Ding. The system chimes in my consciousness. Hostile entity neutralized. Commencing residual mana extraction. A massive surge of pure blue energy floods straight from his crushed corpse into my structural nodes. Ding. 400 energy points acquired. I check my status screen. The raw power rushing through my foundation is absolutely intoxicating. Up on the surface, Silas is standing completely frozen in the dirt. He just watched a level 12 pyromancer get casually swallowed by the earth without leaving a single trace behind. His heavy broadsword shakes violently in his sweaty hand. He takes one terrified step backward, then another. He turns around to run for his miserable life. But right at that exact moment, Elizabeth finally steps onto the dirt path leading directly to my yard. She sees Silas desperately trying to escape. She sees the black scorch marks staining my front walls. She doesn't hesitate for a split second. She sprints straight toward my iron door and violently throws the heavy stack of raw steel plating and the lesser earth attribute mana crystal directly onto my front threshold. "Catch!" she yells. The moment the merchant's materials touch my stone ledge, my system completely devours them. The thick steel and the glowing crystal dissolve into pure white light and sink straight into my foundation. Ding! Earth attribute mana crystal assimilated. 150 energy points acquired. Raw steel plating integrated. System requirements met. Tier 3 weaponized architecture catalog unlocked. I don't even bother reading the minor defensive upgrades on the list. I have a fleeing gang leader to catch before he leaves my perception radius. I quickly check my energy balance. I have exactly enough points to make a permanent statement. I immediately select the heavy offensive module. Ding. 450 energy points consumed. Constructing automated steel cable ballistas. The heavy limestone blocks on the high gables of my roof suddenly grind and split violently apart. Two massive mechanical ballistas weave themselves into existence out of the integrated raw steel, bolting heavily into my roof structure with loud metallic clangs. Thick, heavy coils of steel cable lock tightly into the mechanical winches. I rapidly tap into my structural perception, locking my targeting perfectly onto Silas's fleeing back. He is exactly 15 feet away, sprinting down the dirt path like a terrified rat. I mentally pull the trigger. Thwack. The right roof ballista fires with the deafening force of a cannon. A heavy, razor-sharp steel harpoon shoots through the air, completely crossing the distance in a fraction of a second. It pierces clean through Silas's right calf, driving straight into the compacted dirt road below him. Silas screams in absolute agony. He crashes face first into the dirt, dropping his sword with a loud clatter. He claws frantically at the ground, desperately trying to pull himself forward, but the thick steel cable connected securely to my roof holds him completely pinned to the floor. He looks back at the thick steel cable jutting out from his bleeding leg, his face contorted in pure, unadulterated pain. "My leg! You completely shattered my leg!" he shrieks. The few slum residents hiding cowardly behind their broken windows gasp in pure terror. Did that house just shoot him? Someone whispers loudly. That's the boss of the Red Snakes. He's totally done for. This place is cursed. Elizabeth walks calmly into the yard, confidently stepping right over Silas's dropped broadsword. She reaches into her belt and pulls out a rusted iron dagger, the exact same dagger she casually salvaged from the gang members I killed yesterday. She walks right up to the immobilized gang leader and stands directly over him. She isn't trembling. She isn't crying like a victim anymore. She looks down at him with eyes as cold as dead ice. Tell me exactly where your gang's main headquarters is, she says, her voice completely steady and commanding. And tell me exactly where you keep the financial vault. Silas violently spits a mouthful of bloody dirt right onto her shoes. He glares up at her with pure, unfiltered hatred. You really think you can take down the entire Red Snake gang? He snarls, completely delusional about his current situation. You're dead meat, little girl. The moment my second-in-command realizes I am missing, he's going to bring 50 armed men here and tear this stupid mimic apart block by block. Go to hell. He really thinks he still has leverage. He actually thinks he can intimidate us with numbers. I let out a cold laugh in my mind. I don't wait for Elizabeth to ask him a second time. I immediately activate the mechanical winch on my roof ballista. The heavy steel gears grind loudly as the thick cable rapidly retracts. The harpoon violently yanks backward, physically dragging Silas across the rough dirt road straight toward my front porch. He screams at the top of his lungs as his body is forcefully pulled closer and closer to my stone foundation. I instantly trigger the floorboard mechanism, revealing the row of razor-sharp spike traps lining my threshold. He stares directly at the bloody steel spikes, rapidly approaching his face. His arrogant tough guy persona vanishes instantly. Stop! Stop pulling! I'll talk. I'll tell you everything, he shrieks, violently waving his hands in the air to surrender. Lower docks. Warehouse number 4. The main vault is buried deep under the supervisor's office. The combination code is carved directly into the back of my Silver Guild medallion. Just stop the damn winch. I hit the brakes on the cable, leaving his terrified face exactly 1 inch away from my threshold spikes. He lies there violently sobbing, his gang leader reputation completely shattered. He is nothing but a pathetic coward. I don't even give him the chance to catch his breath or beg for mercy. I rapidly manipulate the earthen foundation beneath his chest, instantly dropping him into a secondary internal holding cell right next to the crushed pyromancer. The ground seamlessly seals shut above him, plunging him into absolute terrifying darkness. Elizabeth reaches down and picks up Silas's dropped broadsword, casually testing its heavy weight in her small hands. She looks out at the setting sun dipping below the slum skyline, then turns and looks directly at my reinforced iron door. We have the exact coordinates, she says, a cold smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth. If we hit that warehouse tonight, we can clear out their entire financial vault before they even realize their boss is gone. We are getting that tier 4 evolution by sunrise. I don't waste another second. The moment Elizabeth makes her declaration, I immediately pull up my system interface and check my remaining energy balance. I have just enough to make sure she doesn't walk into a death trap completely blind. Ding! 200 energy points consumed. Subterranean root extension module unlocked. A violent, thrilling surge of raw power violently rushes down through my limestone walls and directly into my dirt foundation. I don't just sit on top of the soil anymore. Thick, heavily armored sensory tendrils made of reinforced stone violently push deep into the earth beneath my floorboards. I force them forward, rapidly tunneling through the damp slum topsoil at an insane speed. In my past life as a royal guard, the prince I swore to protect constantly relied on a massive network of expensive human spies and cowardly informants to gather his intelligence, and those same spies eventually sold him out to the enemy assassins. I'll never make that stupid mistake. I am my own intelligence network now. My stone tendrils rapidly branch out like a massive underground spider web, violently pushing past buried rocks and rotting sewer pipes, extending my structural perception all the way down to the lower docks. I can feel every single vibration on the surface. I track Elizabeth's light, steady footsteps as she confidently navigates the dark, winding alleys of the slum. She doesn't hesitate. She grips that rusted iron dagger tightly in her hand, her face completely set in stone. She finally arrives right outside warehouse number 4. My underground sensory tendrils are already coiled directly beneath the dirt road in front of the massive timber building. I can clearly perceive 3 heavily armed gang guards patrolling the front perimeter. They are leaning against the wooden crates, holding cheap steel swords, and laughing loudly about some gambling debt. One of them spots Elizabeth stepping out of the shadows. He completely stops laughing and aggressively points his blade right at her. Well, look what the stray dog's dragged in, he sneers, his face twisting into an incredibly ugly, arrogant smirk. Are you lost, little beggar rat? This is Red Snake territory. You better drop that pathetic little butter knife and get on your knees before we decide to have some fun with you. The other 2 guards laugh loudly, totally underestimating the situation. They think she is just some helpless slum trash. They have absolutely no idea what is directly beneath their expensive leather boots. Elizabeth doesn't even flinch. She just stares at them with eyes as cold as dead ice and takes 1 step forward. The lead guard spits on the ground and aggressively steps up to grab her. You've got a lot of nerve, you little... He doesn't even get to finish his incredibly stupid sentence. I mentally lock onto their exact coordinates and instantly channel my mana into my root system. Ding. Tier 3 weaponized architecture activated. 3 massive razor-sharp limestone spikes violently explode straight up out of the dirt directly beneath the guards. The sound of compacted earth shattering is deafening. The lead guard's arrogant smirk completely freezes on his face as a thick stone pillar violently impales him right through the chest, lifting him 3 feet into the air. He spits up a massive mouthful of blood, dropping his cheap sword with a heavy clatter. The other 2 guards don't even have time to scream before my stone spikes violently pierce through their stomachs, instantly pinning them completely dead to the air. A couple of dock workers loitering near a distant tavern see the entire thing happen, their eyes widen in absolute horror. Did the ground just eat them? One of them shrieks, instantly dropping his beer mug. Run. It's a high-level earth spell. They turn and sprint away like terrified rats. I couldn't care less about them. Elizabeth doesn't even blink at the gore. She casually steps right over the 3 impaled corpses, kicks the heavy wooden doors of the warehouse completely open, and walks straight into the main vault. Inside the massive dimly lit storage room, my structural perception instantly flags a new highly dangerous target. Ding. Target identified. Level 18 Earth Mage. Red Snake Vice Leader. He is a tall, heavily scarred man wearing a premium leather combat vest, currently frantically packing dozens of glowing mana crystals into heavy wooden transport crates. He spins around at the sound of the doors violently crashing open. He looks at Elizabeth standing in the doorway, then glances down at the blood dripping from her rusted iron dagger. His eyes narrow dangerously. "I know you," he snarls, completely ignoring the fact that she just bypassed his perimeter security. "You're Thomas's worthless little niece. You're the main target on Silas's priority manifest. I have no idea how a piece of slum trash like you managed to kill my guards, but did you seriously just walk into my personal vault alone to die?" He laughs coldly, a deeply arrogant sound that physically disgusts me. "You think a little knife is going to save you from a level 18 mage? I'm gonna bury you alive and send your head right back to your uncle in a box." He doesn't even bother drawing a weapon. He arrogantly slams both of his hands directly onto the stone floor of the warehouse, violently channeling his mana core. A massive, glowing yellow magic circle instantly flares to life beneath Elizabeth's feet. The solid stone floor begins to violently tremble and crack apart, desperately trying to open a massive, jagged fissure to drop her straight into the dark abyss. Elizabeth's face drains of some color, but she fiercely holds her ground. The vice leader sneers, totally convinced he has already won. "Die, rat," he yells. But he is incredibly, utterly stupid. He actually thinks he is the only one who can control the earth in this room. My stone-reinforced sensory tendrils are already perfectly intertwined with the foundation of the entire warehouse. I immediately tap into the Earth Attribute mana crystal I absorbed earlier. Ding. System synergy activated. Hijacking hostile mana structure. I forcefully inject my heavily compressed architectural mana directly into his glowing magic circle. The fissure violently stops expanding just an inch away from Elizabeth's boots. The vice leader's smug smile completely freezes on his face. He frantically slams his hands against the floor again, his eyes widening in pure panic. What is happening? He shrieks, violently coughing as his magic violently backlashes. Why isn't my mana responding? Who is interfering with my spell? I don't give him a single second to figure it out. I don't just cancel his magic. I aggressively command my massive underground tendrils to violently wrap completely around the primary timber support pillars, holding up the entire warehouse roof. With a single, ruthless mental command, I forcefully constrict my stone roots. The thick wooden pillars violently snap in half with a deafening, explosive crack. The vice leader looks up, his face completely pale with absolute terror. "No, my barrier." He screams, desperately trying to cast a defensive shield over his head. It doesn't matter. The entire heavy timber roof and tons of stone tiles violently collapse directly onto him. He is instantly crushed flat under the massive weight, smashing into the ground with a heavy, sickening thud. The entire warehouse fills with a thick cloud of choking dust. Ding. Hostile entity neutralized. Elizabeth coughs, waving the thick dust away from her face as she confidently walks right into the ruined vault. She completely ignores the crushed remains of the vice leader and immediately starts searching the smashed wooden crates. She works incredibly fast, tossing aside the cheap copper coins and broken junk. Within minutes, she pulls out a heavy leather pouch, jingling loudly with exactly 4,000 pure silver coins. Then she spots a small, heavily engraved silver band resting on a velvet pillow inside a shattered display case. A grade B spatial ring. In my past life, only top-tier royal generals were ever allowed to wear those. And right next to it, glowing with violent, crackling blue energy, is a massive, perfectly pristine level 20 lightning beast core. She securely slips the spatial ring onto her finger, mentally transferring the heavy bags of silver directly into its internal storage space. Then she looks down at the stone floor. She spots one of my thick limestone root tendrils totally exposed among the shattered floorboards. She knows exactly what to do. She kneels down and aggressively presses the crackling lightning beast core directly against my hard stone surface. The moment the high-tier item touches my structural node, my system completely goes crazy. A massive, violent surge of pure electrical energy floods straight up my root network, completely overcharging my foundation. Ding. Level 20 Lightning Beast Core assimilated. 1,500 energy points acquired. Core system upgrade requirements met. Initiating level 3 evolution. My entire status screen violently flashes with golden light. The raw power rushing through my walls is absolutely insane. I feel my limestone blocks physically hardening, my internal spatial dimensions drastically expanding, and my architectural nodes completely resetting. Ding. Tier 4 Mobile Bastion catalog unlocked. I look at the new options and I almost laugh out loud. A stationary fortress is just a sitting duck waiting for a bigger army to arrive. If I stay in one place, I'll eventually get completely surrounded. I need to take this on the road. I immediately select the most expensive, heavily armored upgrade on the list. Ding. 1,200 energy points consumed. Converting static dirt foundation into heavy mechanized limestone tread, the violent transformation starts instantly. Back at the slum property, the ground violently shakes like a massive earthquake. The terrified neighbors hiding in their shacks scream as my entire stone structure physically violently detaches from the dirt. Massive, incredibly heavy interlocking tracks made of heavily compressed limestone violently forge themselves directly underneath my floorboards, locking into huge internal stone gears powered by my newly upgraded mana core. I am no longer just a building. I am a heavily armored, fully mobile fortress. I quickly check my remaining energy balance and immediately spend the rest of my points to construct an automated resource smelter deep inside my expanded secondary room. I need a way to process all the raw materials we just stole without relying on those garbage street merchants ever again. Elizabeth rapidly uses her new spatial ring to sprint all the way back to the slums, moving incredibly fast through the dark alleys. But right as she approaches my yard, my newly expanded perception radius violently pings with dozens of massive red threat markers. 50 heavily armed enforcers from the overarching slum syndicate are aggressively marching directly onto my property. These aren't the cheap red snake thugs. These guys are wearing matching steel chainmail, carrying heavy crossbows, and holding high-tier glowing mana torches. They are looking for the missing pyromancer I crushed earlier. The Syndicate Vanguard leader, a huge guy with a massive battle axe, stands right in front of my newly formed limestone treads. He points his heavy axe directly at my front door. The pyromancer's tracker pinged right here. He yells at his men, his face completely twisted with arrogant fury. Tear this entire mimic down. Break every single rock. I'll completely slaughter whoever lives inside. I look at his stupid, entitled face, and I don't feel an ounce of fear. This location is totally burned. There is absolutely zero reason to stay in this filthy slum anymore. Before I leave, I have one last piece of trash to take out. Deep in my underground holding cell, Silas is violently sobbing in the absolute darkness, still hopelessly waiting for his gang to save him. I don't give him another second of breath. I immediately activate my residual mana extraction, violently draining him completely dry. Silas shrieks in absolute agony as his body rapidly shrivels up, turning into a completely lifeless husk of gray ash. Ding! Target deceased. Mana reserves completely topped off. Elizabeth violently bursts out of the alleyway, sprinting straight toward my iron door. I instantly pop the heavy metal door wide open for her. The syndicate leader spots her and his eyes widen with pure rage. There she is. He roars, violently swinging his battle axe. Shoot her! Don't let her get inside that thing. A dozen crossbow bolts violently whistle through the air, but Elizabeth completely ignores them. She dives aggressively right over my threshold, rolling safely onto my floorboards. I violently slam the iron door completely shut, totally blocking the heavy steel bolts. They bounce off my thick limestone walls with loud, pathetic clangs. The syndicate leader aggressively charges forward, raising his massive battle axe to smash my front porch. Break it open. He screams, totally convinced he has the numbers advantage. He thinks 50 guys can actually stop a tier 4 mobile bastion. I don't even bother deploying my roof ballistas. I just violently channel my mana core directly into my new foundation gears. I activate my mechanical treads. The massive, heavy limestone tracks violently grind against the dirt with a deafening, terrifying roar. The ground violently shakes. The syndicate leader completely freezes in his tracks. His arrogant smirk completely vanishes, replaced by pure, unadulterated horror. His face completely drains of all color. He gasps, sucking in a massive breath of cold air. What the hell is it doing? He shrieks, desperately taking a step backward. It's moving. The damn house is a tank. He tries to turn and run, but I violently throw my gears into full throttle. My massive stone structure aggressively surges forward with insane speed. I drive straight over the top of him. He doesn't even have time to scream before my heavy limestone treads completely crush him and the entire front line of his vanguard flat into the dirt, smashing them into a bloody pulp with a heavy, sickening crunch. The crowd of remaining syndicate thugs completely lose their mind. They frantically fire their fire spells and heavy crossbows at my sides, but their pathetic attacks just violently bounce off my heavily armored exterior like harmless pebbles. Die, just die. One of them screams, violently crying in pure panic as he drops his weapon and runs for his life. I don't even slow down. I aggressively steer my massive stone structure straight out of the filthy slum district, violently crushing fences and abandoned carts under my heavy tracks. Inside the safety of my heavily reinforced secondary room, Elizabeth doesn't even care about the violent bumps. She is already calmly organizing our massive pile of new stolen resources right next to the glowing automated smelter. I totally ignore the pathetic, ineffective weapon strikes bouncing off my rear walls as I aggressively drive my mobile fortress straight toward the dark, untamed wilderness. The heavy limestone treads violently chew through the dirt and rocks as I completely cross the city border, leaving the pathetic slum syndicate choking on my dust. We are officially in the Whispering Wastes now, an arid, lawless zone where the city guards don't even bother patrolling. Inside my heavily reinforced secondary room, Elizabeth doesn't waste a single second celebrating our escape. She knows just as well as I do that surviving the slums was only the tutorial. She immediately walks right up to the brand new automated resource smelter and forcefully jams the violently crackling level 20 lightning beast core directly into the primary power slot. The entire machine instantly roars to life with a deafening hum, violently glowing with pure blue electrical energy. She doesn't even flinch at the massive sparks flying through the air. She just starts grabbing the heavy steel plating we stole from the market vendor and aggressively shoves the metal right into the intake chute. The smelter violently crushes and melts the steel in seconds, completely refining it into pure liquid metal that flows directly into my foundation nodes. Ding! Refined steel plating assimilated. 600 energy points acquired. I don't hesitate at all. I immediately pull up my system interface and dump every single point right back into my structural core. Ding! 600 energy points consumed. Interior walls upgraded to heavy steel bulkheads. A violent, thrilling surge of raw power aggressively rushes through my internal dimensions. The cheap limestone lining my inner rooms violently cracks and falls away, instantly replaced by thick, impenetrable sheets of solid, cold steel. The metal completely locks into place with a heavy, satisfying clank. In my past life as a royal guard, I've seen high-tier assassins easily punch right through stone walls to get to their targets. That's never going to happen here. My interior is an absolute steel vault now. Even a level 30 warrior would completely shatter their fists trying to break through my inner layers. I confidently keep my treads grinding forward at full speed, completely eating up the miles of barren dirt for 2 solid hours. My newly expanded structural perception suddenly pings with 5 massive fast-moving threat markers aggressively approaching from the east. It's a high-tier hunting convoy from the inner city, rapidly cutting directly across my path. 4 heavily armored riders on massive warhorses are completely flanking a ridiculously expensive, gold-trimmed carriage. Ding. Threat identified. 4 level 25 silver knights. 1 level 30 noble. The carriage door violently kicks open and a tall, arrogantly dressed aristocrat steps out onto the dirt. Lord Kale. He is wearing incredibly expensive silk robes and holding a glowing mana staff, completely looking down his nose at everything around him. He stares at my moving limestone treads, his eyes widening for a fraction of a second before a cold, deeply greedy smirk tugs at the corner of his mouth. He actually thinks he just hit the jackpot. Unbelievable, he arrogantly sneers, aggressively pointing his glowing staff right at my roof. A fully functional rogue construct out here in the wastes. Do you idiots have any idea how rare this is? The Royal Academy would pay millions for a mobile mimic like this. Capture it immediately. I want this thing completely intact to use as my personal hunting lodge. The 4 level 25 silver knights aggressively nod, pulling their warhorses forward. They look at my heavy stone exterior and actually start laughing. "This is going to be incredibly easy, my lord," the lead knight smugly says, totally underestimating my heavy armor. "It's just a pile of rocks moving on some gears. We'll have it completely tied down in 2 minutes." He violently kicks his horse, aggressively charging straight at my right flank. The other 3 knights instantly follow his lead, violently pulling out heavy magnetic grappling hooks attached to thick steel chains. They violently swing the heavy hooks through the air and aggressively throw them straight at my roof. Clank, clank! The magnetic hooks violently latch right onto my upper limestone gables, biting deep into my stone exterior. The knights arrogantly yank the chains tight, violently trying to force my heavy treads to stop moving. They seriously think some pathetic chains are going to stop a tier 4 mobile bastion. I let out a cold laugh in my head. I don't even bother slowing down. I immediately activate my spatial expansion module and forcefully manipulate the exact exterior nodes where their hooks are attached. Ding. Structural detachment initiated. The solid limestone blocks holding their hooks violently detach from my main roof, completely crumbling into loose gravel. The heavy steel chains instantly lose all tension, violently snapping back right into the knights' faces. The 2 knights riding closest to my right side completely lose their balance. Their eyes widen in absolute horror as their massive warhorses violently stumble over the loose rocks. They don't even have time to scream before they violently pitch straight forward, falling right off their saddles and landing directly in the path of my massive, grinding limestone treads. No. One of them shrieks, frantically trying to crawl away. I violently surge my gears into full throttle and aggressively drive right over both of them. My heavy stone tracks completely crush them and their expensive silver armor flat into the dirt, smashing their bodies into a bloody, unrecognizable pulp with a heavy, sickening crunch. Ding. 2 hostile entities neutralized. The 3rd knight totally panics, but his momentum is already carrying him right onto my front porch. He violently leaps off his horse and aggressively lands on my threshold, frantically swinging his enchanted broadsword. He violently forces the tip of his blade right into the seam of my iron door, aggressively trying to pry it open. "You're dead. I'm gonna break your core," he screams, his face completely pale with terrified rage. He actually manages to forcefully pop the iron door open and violently steps inside. But he has absolutely no idea what he just walked into. He thinks he's entering my main room, but I immediately shift my internal floor plan. Thick steel bulkheads violently slide into place behind him, completely trapping him inside a tiny, heavily sealed airlock corridor. The knight completely freezes in his tracks. He frantically swings his sword at the steel walls, but the blade just violently bounces off with a loud clang, not even leaving a scratch. I don't give him a single second to figure out a plan. I violently reroute the automated resource smelter's raw thermal exhaust directly into the confined airlock. A massive wave of incredibly highly pressurized, boiling hot air violently blasts straight into the tiny room. The temperature instantly spikes to over 300 degrees. The knight gasps, violently sucking in a massive breath of boiling air. His eyes roll back into his head as he instantly collapses to the steel floor, completely suffocating from the extreme heat exposure. Ding. Hostile entity neutralized. The 4th and final knight sees his entire squad get completely slaughtered in less than 30 seconds. His arrogant smirk is totally gone. His face completely drains of all color. He violently yanks his horse's reins, desperately trying to turn around and run for his life. Monster. It's a high-level monster. He shrieks, violently kicking his horse to sprint away. I completely ignore his pathetic screaming. "You don't just attack my property and get to walk away." I immediately lock onto his exact coordinates and activate my tier 3 weaponized architecture. Ding! Roof ballista deployed. A massive steel cable harpoon violently shoots straight out of my roof gable with a deafening crack. The heavy steel bolt violently whistles through the air and aggressively pierces right through the knight's expensive silver backplate, forcefully impaling him. He spits up a massive mouthful of blood, completely paralyzed by the impact. I violently activate the roof winch and forcefully reel the heavy steel cable right back in. The knight gets violently dragged right off his horse, flying aggressively through the air before violently slamming directly into my moving limestone treads. He is instantly crushed completely flat under my heavy tracks. Ding. Hostile entity neutralized. The entire battlefield goes completely silent. The only sound is the heavy, violent grinding of my mechanical gears. Elizabeth doesn't even wait for me to stop moving. She aggressively kicks my iron door open and confidently jumps right out onto the dirt, completely ignoring the massive bloody mess. She rapidly searches the crushed bodies of the knights, expertly grabbing their expensive gear. She moves incredibly fast, violently ripping 4 grade C spatial rings right off their dead fingers. Then she aggressively scoops up their dropped enchanted broadswords and completely intact silver armor sets. In my past life, this kind of high-tier equipment would take a royal soldier 10 years of active duty to afford. We just got it for free from a bunch of arrogant idiots. Elizabeth immediately tosses the entire pile of loot right onto my front porch. I don't hesitate. I violently absorb the high-tier items the exact second they touch my floorboards. Ding. High-tier equipment assimilated. 1,500 energy points acquired. Core system requirements met. Tier 4 elemental artillery module unlocked. A massive violent surge of raw magical energy completely floods my entire foundation. My mana core violently expands, heavily vibrating with intense power. I look at my new system interface and a cold smirk completely takes over my thoughts. I don't just have physical traps anymore. I can forcefully weaponize the very earth beneath me. Lord Kale is standing right next to his gold-trimmed carriage, completely frozen in absolute shock. He just watched his entire elite escort get effortlessly slaughtered by a moving building. All his arrogant entitlement completely vanishes. His face is completely pale with pure, unadulterated terror. He aggressively drops his glowing mana staff and violently turns to run away on foot, totally abandoning his expensive carriage. He is incredibly pathetic. He actually thinks he can outrun a tier 4 mobile bastion on foot. I violently shift the heavy limestone blocks on my forward-facing exterior. The thick stone aggressively reconfigures itself, violently forming a massive heavy pneumatic cannon directly in the center of my front wall. I violently channel my earth attribute mana straight into the chamber, aggressively compressing the dirt and rocks into a hyper-dense projectile. Ding. Elemental artillery fired. A concentrated dirt projectile violently shoots out of my stone cannon with a massive sonic boom. The heavy projectile aggressively slams right into the back of Kale's right leg. The sickening crunch of breaking bone loudly echoes across the barren wasteland. Kale screams in absolute agony, violently pitching forward and aggressively smashing into the hard dirt with a heavy thud. His leg is completely shattered, aggressively bent at a totally unnatural angle. I aggressively drive my heavy limestone treads right up to him, violently stopping just inches away from his terrified face. The massive shadow of my armored hull completely covers him. Elizabeth confidently steps out of my iron door and casually walks right up to the crippled aristocrat. She completely ignores his pathetic sobbing and violently pats down his expensive silk robes. She aggressively reaches into his inner pocket and forcefully pulls out a heavy, incredibly detailed parchment map. She quickly unfolds it and her eyes widen slightly. The map clearly displays the exact coordinates of a massive, completely unexploited mana crystal mine hidden deep inside a nearby canyon. This is an absolute gold mine. This is exactly what I need for my tier 5 evolution. Kale aggressively grits his teeth, his face completely twisted with arrogant fury even while he's lying in the dirt. "You filthy slum trash." He violently spits, desperately trying to sound intimidating. "You have absolutely no idea who you're messing with. My family controls the entire Western trade route. When my father finds out you stole my map and crippled me, he'll send a full army of gold tier mages to completely vaporize this pathetic rock box. He is incredibly, utterly stupid. He actually thinks his family name means anything out here in the lawless wastes. He thinks he still has any leverage at all. In my past life as a royal guard, I had to politely bow my head to arrogant, completely useless nobles just like him, pretending they were better than me just because they were born into money. I am never doing that again. I don't give him another second to talk. I violently command my subterranean root network. A thick, heavy steel pipe aggressively erupts straight out of the hard dirt directly beneath Kale. The heavy metal violently wraps around his throat and aggressively pins him completely flat against a nearby jagged boulder. Cold steel violently chokes him, completely cutting off his arrogant rant. Kale violently thrashes, frantically clawing at the heavy pipe, his face rapidly turning totally purple. He gasps for air, his eyes bulging with pure terror. I slightly loosen the steel pipe just enough for him to speak. "Give her the entrance passcode to the mine, or I completely crush your windpipe right now." I violently project the thought through my internal system, making the heavy steel physically vibrate against his neck. Kale completely breaks. His arrogant entitlement totally shatters. Okay, I'll tell you." He shrieks, desperately crying like a pathetic child. "It's Crimson Dawn, just let me go." "I swear I won't tell anyone." Elizabeth doesn't even blink. She quickly memorizes the passcode and confidently walks right back into my heavy iron door. I don't let the steel pipe go. Instead, I aggressively activate my residual mana extraction. I violently drain Kale's entire mana pool right through the steel pipe. He shrieks in absolute agony as his magical reserves are violently ripped out of his core. Ding. Mana pool extracted. 400 energy points acquired. Core system upgrade requirements met. Initiating level 4 evolution. My entire status screen violently flashes with blinding golden light. My massive stone foundation aggressively shifts and expands. My base footprint violently grows, rapidly expanding to a massive 60 square meters. Thick steel beams violently shoot straight up from my foundation, totally unlocking my multi-story construction module. I am no longer just a single-story fortress. I forcefully pull my steel pipe back underground, completely leaving the crippled, mana-drained Kale stranded alone in the freezing, monster-infested wasteland. He is completely helpless. I don't even look back at him. I violently throw my heavy mechanical gears into full throttle and aggressively recalibrate my limestone tracks, violently heading straight toward the Crystal Mine Canyon to farm the massive resources I need for my Tier 5 evolution. The heavy limestone tracks violently grind through the arid dirt as I push deeper into the jagged canyon, leaving the open wasteland completely behind. I navigate the winding stone corridors for another 20 minutes until my structural perception suddenly pings with a massive cluster of life signatures just ahead. I slow my mechanical treads and aggressively scan the area. This is supposed to be an unexploited mana crystal mine, a totally hidden secret that arrogant, noble Kale was keeping to himself. But as I round the final bend, the canyon violently opens up into a massive excavation site, and it's already completely crawling with people. A heavily armed extraction crew is currently swarming the exposed cliff face. I immediately recognize the dark iron insignias violently stamped on their heavy armor, the Ironclad Guild. They are one of the most ruthless mercenary factions in the entire western sector. In my past life as a royal guard, dealing with ironclad thugs always meant dealing with absolute scavengers who would happily slaughter a whole village for a handful of copper coins. Right now, they have 10 heavily armed mercenaries actively operating massive mana-powered drilling machines, violently tearing chunks of raw glowing crystal right out of the canyon walls. Standing right in the center of the operation, aggressively barking orders, is their overseer. I pull up my system interface and lock onto his signature. Target identified, Overseer Vane, level 30 Geomancer. He's wearing a heavy rawhide cloak and carrying a thick stone staff, looking completely full of himself. The incredibly loud grinding of my treads instantly gives away my position. Vane aggressively spins around, his eyes locking directly onto my massive stone hull. His mercenaries completely stop drilling, violently pulling out their enchanted broadswords and heavy crossbows. Vane doesn't look intimidated at all. Instead, an incredibly greedy smirk violently tugs at the corner of his mouth. He spots Elizabeth confidently looking out through one of my heavy, steel-reinforced windows. "Look what the waste's dragged in." Vane arrogantly shouts, violently pointing his stone staff right at my chassis. A rogue mobile construct, and it's carrying a slum rat. What absolute luck. We barely have enough cargo space to haul these crystals back, and this pathetic moving rock box is going to be the perfect pack mule. He aggressively turns to his mercenaries. "Hijack that thing right now. Kill the girl and wipe the construct's core. I want it completely emptied out and ready to load in 5 minutes." The 10 mercenaries start laughing, totally underestimating me as they violently charge forward. They actually think a level 30 Geomancer and a few heavily armed thugs can just claim a tier 4 mobile bastion like it's a piece of abandoned property. I let out a cold laugh in my head. Vane aggressively slams the butt of his stone staff directly into the canyon dirt. Heavy earth attribute mana violently surges through the ground. "Stone spikes," he roars. 3 massive, jagged pillars of solid rock violently erupt straight out of the dirt directly beneath my limestone tracks. He is actively trying to completely destroy my mobility and pin me in place. The heavy rock spikes aggressively slam into my undercarriage with a deafening crunch, violently forcing my gears to a sudden halt. He thinks he just trapped me. He has absolutely no idea what I'm capable of. I don't panic for a single second. I immediately pull up my system interface and lock onto the 800 energy points sitting in my reserves. Ding. 800 energy points consumed. Level 4 multi-story construction module activated. A massive, violent surge of raw structural power completely floods my foundation. I don't just sit there and take the hit. I aggressively reconfigure my entire structural layout. Thick steel beams violently shoot straight up from my base footprint, forcefully ripping through my own limestone roof. I aggressively extrude a massive 10-meter tall second-story command tower directly out of my main chassis. The violent vertical expansion forcefully shifts my entire center of mass. The sheer mechanical force of my rapid structural growth aggressively snaps Vane's earth spikes right in half. The heavy rock pillars completely shatter into useless gravel, violently dropping my tracks back onto solid ground. The sudden appearance of a towering 10-meter-tall fortress completely breaks Vane's line of sight. He violently stumbles back, his eyes widening in absolute shock. What the hell is that thing doing? He shrieks, his arrogant smirk completely wiped off his face. I don't give them a single second to figure it out. Now that I have the absolute high ground, I immediately activate my Tier 4 elemental artillery from the newly constructed second floor. Heavy stone panels violently slide open on the front of my tower, aggressively deploying a massive pneumatic cannon directly aimed at the mercenaries below. I rapidly combine my Earth Attribute mana with the fiery energy I absorbed from the Pyromancer back in the slums. I forcefully compress the dirt and fire right into the firing chamber. Ding! Elemental artillery fired. A massive, violently glowing projectile of molten rock and compressed dirt aggressively shoots out of the cannon with a deafening sonic boom. It violently screams through the air and aggressively slams directly into the center of the charging mercenaries. The explosion is absolutely massive. A violent shockwave of boiling fire and razor-sharp shrapnel completely rips through the canyon. 5 of the heavily armored mercenaries don't even have time to scream. The molten rock violently melts right through their iron armor, aggressively incinerating them on the spot. Their bodies are completely blown apart, leaving nothing but burning chunks of metal and heavily charred flesh violently scattered across the dirt. Ding! 5 hostile entities neutralized. The crowd of remaining mercenaries completely freeze in absolute terror. They violently drop their weapons and desperately dive behind a stack of heavy wooden supply crates, completely terrified out of their minds. Monster! It's a high-tier monster. One of them screams, his face completely pale with fear. Vane violently grits his teeth, furiously clutching his stone staff. Stand your ground, you cowards. He violently roars, completely refusing to accept that his perfect ambush just blew up in his face. While he is completely distracted trying to rally his pathetic crew, I don't just sit there waiting. I am a living fortress. I can multitask. I aggressively deploy my subterranean root extension, violently driving thick, stone-reinforced sensory tendrils deep into the canyon dirt. I violently maneuver my roots directly past the mercenaries, aggressively plugging them straight into the massive exposed veins of raw glowing mana crystals lining the canyon walls. The exact second my roots make contact, I violently activate my raw extraction protocol. I aggressively siphon the pure magical energy straight out of the earth. The massive crystal veins aggressively flicker and violently dim as I ruthlessly drain their power directly into my foundation node. Ding. Raw mana extraction successful. 3,000 energy points acquired. A massive, incredibly violent surge of pure energy completely floods my mana core. My entire structural framework violently hums with overwhelming power. Vane feels the massive shift in ambient mana. He aggressively looks at the canyon walls and sees the crystal veins violently turning into dull, lifeless gray rocks. His eyes bulge with pure, unadulterated rage. "You filthy piece of garbage. You're stealing my crystals." He violently shrieks, completely losing his mind. He aggressively raises his stone staff high into the air, violently channeling every single drop of mana in his body. The ground begins to violently shake. He is actually trying to cast a localized gravitational field. He wants to aggressively collapse the overarching canyon walls directly onto my roof, completely burying me under thousands of tons of solid rock. It's a level 30 desperation move. In my past life, I saw a geomancer wipe out an entire platoon with this exact spell. But I am not a normal target. I am sitting on a massive stockpile of energy, and I am going to completely crush him. I immediately pull up my system interface and aggressively dump my newly acquired points. Ding. 2,000 energy points consumed. Tier 5 automated defenses catalog unlocked. Gargoyle drones constructed. Heavy grinding noises violently echo across my newly built second-story roof. The thick limestone blocks on my 4 upper corners aggressively shift and forcefully reconfigure themselves. In a matter of seconds, 4 massive, violently intimidating limestone gargoyles are completely fully formed. Their stone eyes violently glow with bright blue mana. I don't hesitate. I aggressively issue the attack command. 4 gargoyles violently detach from my roof corners, aggressively spreading their heavy stone wings. They violently dive bomb straight off the tower, rapidly dropping through the air like guided missiles. Vane doesn't even see them coming until it's too late. The gargoyles aggressively slam directly into him before he can finish his gravitational spell. Their razor-sharp stone claws violently slash right through his heavy rock-hide cloak, aggressively tearing deep into his arms. Vane screams in absolute agony as his forearms are violently ripped open, heavily spraying blood across the dirt. His stone staff violently clatters to the ground, completely interrupting the spellcasting. The violent tremors shaking the canyon walls instantly stop. I aggressively throw my mechanical gears into full throttle. My massive limestone tracks violently roar to life, aggressively chewing through the dirt as I charge straight at him. The gargoyles violently pin him in place, completely preventing him from casting any defensive magic. I violently drive my heavy chassis right into him, aggressively pinning his battered body directly against the jagged cliff face. The massive weight of my steel-reinforced hull completely traps him. Vane spits up a huge mouthful of blood, his face completely drained of all color. He is totally terrified. Wait. He desperately shrieks, violently coughing up more blood. You don't know what you're doing. I'm a senior overseer for the Ironclad Guild. If you kill me, they will hunt you to the ends of the earth. He violently struggles against the crushing pressure, completely frantic. I have a lucrative guild contract. I have thousands of silver coins hidden in my spatial ring. Let me go and I'll give you everything. Just spare my life. He is incredibly pathetic. A minute ago, he was arrogantly ordering his men to slaughter Elizabeth and wipe my core, and now he is begging like a beaten dog. I don't negotiate with scavengers. I violently surge my treads forward, aggressively increasing the pressure against the cliff face. No, Vane violently screams. A sickening, incredibly loud crunch violently echoes through the canyon as my heavy limestone hull completely crushes his ribcage. His body is violently flattened against the rock, instantly reducing him to a bloody, unrecognizable pulp. Ding. Hostile entity neutralized. The remaining 5 mercenaries hiding behind the crates completely lose their minds. They just watch their level 30 overseer get effortlessly crushed into paste. They violently throw their weapons onto the dirt and frantically run for their lives, aggressively sprinting out of the canyon and disappearing into the barren wasteland. I completely ignore them. They aren't worth the energy. The entire excavation site goes completely silent, save for the heavy hum of my internal core. Elizabeth aggressively kicks my iron door open and confidently steps out into the bloody canyon. She doesn't even flinch at the crushed bodies. She rapidly walks right over to the abandoned ironclad encampment, expertly looting everything in sight. She aggressively grabs the heavy, mana-powered drilling machines, violently tossing them right onto my front porch. Then she walks over to Vane's crushed remains and forcefully yanks 4 high-grade spatial storage rings right off his bloody fingers. They are completely packed to the brim with highly refined mana crystals. I instantly absorb the items the second they touch my floorboards, while aggressively using my subterranean roots to completely drain the rest of the raw veins in the canyon walls. I don't let a single drop of mana go to waste. Finally, I violently activate my residual mana extraction, completely siphoning Vane's entire level 30 mana pool straight out of his corpse. Ding. Massive energy surge detected. 1,500 energy points acquired. Core system upgrade requirements met. Initiating level 5 evolution. A violently blinding blue light aggressively erupts from my core, totally washing over my entire structure. My foundation aggressively groans as thick steel and heavy stone violently expand outward in all directions. My base footprint violently stretches, rapidly expanding to a massive 100 square meters. The interior space violently shifts, aggressively opening up massive new corridors and storage bays. Ding, level 5 reached. Kinetic mana shield generator unlocked. A heavy, violently crackling dome of pure blue energy rapidly expands outward from my roof, completely enveloping my entire multi-story fortress in an impenetrable magical barrier. I am an absolute juggernaut now. I immediately start reconfiguring my newly expanded first floor, violently shifting thick steel bulkheads to create a dedicated industrial bay to house the stolen ironclad drilling machines. Elizabeth confidently walks back inside, aggressively dropping a heavily bloodstained parchment map onto my new steel command console. It's Vane's private guild map. She quickly reviews the heavily marked coordinates, her eyes widening slightly as she traces a specific red circle just a few miles north of our current position. It's a completely documented Tier 6 elemental beast nesting ground. I don't hesitate for a single second. I immediately shift my heavy limestone treads into maximum overdrive, completely abandoning the ruined ironclad excavation site as I follow the coordinates marked on Vane's bloody map. The heavy mechanical grinding of my tracks violently echoes through the barren canyon walls as I push straight toward the designated Tier 6 nesting ground. My structural perception constantly scans the surrounding environment, picking up massive spikes in ambient heat and aggressive mana fluctuations just a few miles north. It doesn't take long before the jagged canyon naturally opens up into a massive, heavily smoking volcanic crater. The temperature outside instantly skyrockets, and the ground beneath my treads turns from dry dirt to hot, cracked obsidian. I aggressively roll up to the elevated edge of the crater and look down at the chaotic scene unfolding right in the center of the molten basin. A massive hunting expedition is completely engaged in a desperate, high-stakes battle. I instantly recognize the silver wolf emblem stamped onto their heavy leather armor, the Silver Fang Guild. They are a specialized faction of beast tamers and monster hunters, and right now, they are fighting for their absolute lives. Standing right in the middle of a boiling lava pool is a massive, heavily armored Tier 6 obsidian basilisk. The beast is easily 20 meters long, completely covered in thick, razor-sharp black scales that naturally deflect the tamer's magical attacks like they are nothing. Surrounding the beast are at least 50 heavily armed guild members, frantically casting binding spells and throwing heavy steel nets that just instantly melt against the basilisk's burning hide. Standing safely on a high rock outcropping, completely removed from the actual danger, is their leader. I pull up my system interface and lock onto his energy signature. Target identified. Guildmaster Thorn, level 35 tamer. He's wearing an incredibly expensive set of enchanted silver armor and holding a heavily glowing tamer's whip, screaming at his men to hold the line while they get completely slaughtered. My massive multi-story limestone chassis aggressively rolls over the crater's edge, sending a heavy shower of loose rocks tumbling down the slope. The loud crunch of my treads instantly draws Thorn's attention. He aggressively spins around, his eyes widening in total shock as he stares at my towering 10-meter-tall fortress form. But instead of fear, a disgustingly greedy smirk completely takes over his face. He instantly recognizes an opportunity to save his own skin. Redirect the aggro. Thorn violently roars, cracking his glowing whip against the rocks. Look at that massive construct. Use it as a disposable meat shield. Funnel the beast toward the rock box right now. The terrified tamers don't even hesitate. They frantically break their circular formation, desperately throwing flash powder bombs at the basilisk's face and aggressively sprinting directly toward my position. The crowd of guild members completely panics, desperately shouting at each other. Get behind the construct. Let it take the hit. It's just a rogue machine, who cares if it gets destroyed? The Tier 6 obsidian basilisk lets out a deafening, incredibly violent screech. Its massive reptilian eyes lock directly onto my towering chassis. Its throat violently expands, glowing with a sickening, highly toxic green light. It aggressively rears its massive head back and violently fires a highly concentrated beam of petrifying acid straight at my first floor exterior. Thorn aggressively laughs from his safe little perch. Perfect. Let the acid completely melt that stupid construct down to slag. We fall back and wait for the machine to get destroyed. Then we move in and harvest the weakened beast. He thinks I'm just a dumb, stationary piece of rock that's going to stand here and take the hit for him. He has absolutely no idea what kind of monster he just tried to use as a shield. I let out a cold laugh in my mind. I immediately pull up my system interface and access my newly acquired level 5 defensive catalog. Ding. 500 energy points consumed. Kinetic mana shield generator activated. A massive, violently crackling dome of pure blue energy rapidly expands outward from my roof core, completely enveloping my entire multi-story fortress in a thick, impenetrable magical barrier. The massive beam of petrifying acid aggressively slams directly into the energy shield. The impact creates a violently loud hissing sound, but the shield doesn't even flinch. The highly toxic acid completely washes over the blue barrier, aggressively boiling away into harmless green steam before it can even touch a single inch of my steel-reinforced limestone blocks. Ding. Hostile attack successfully absorbed. Structural damage 0. The crowd of fleeing tamers completely freeze in their tracks. Their faces instantly drain of all color as they stare at my perfectly intact shield. What the hell is that thing? One of them violently screams. It just completely tanked a Tier 6 acid breath without a single scratch. Thorn's smug smile completely freezes on his face. His eyes bulge out of his head. That's impossible. He shrieks, violently gripping his whip. No rogue construct has a Tier 5 kinetic shield. I completely ignore his pathetic whining. I didn't come here to play defense. I immediately initiate my offensive counterattack. I rapidly shift my internal floor plan, aggressively moving the massive, mana-powered ironclad drilling machines I stole from Vane directly to my front chassis. Ding. External hardware integration protocol initiated. Thick steel clamps violently extrude from my front porch, aggressively locking the heavy industrial drills directly onto my forward bumper. The massive drill bits violently spin to life, aggressively grinding against the hot air with a terrifying mechanical roar. I don't give the basilisk a single second to recharge its acid breath. I violently throw my heavy limestone treads into maximum overdrive. My massive 100 square meter footprint violently surges forward, aggressively tearing up the obsidian ground as I charge straight down the crater slope at full ramming speed. The basilisk tries to aggressively swipe at me with its massive tail, but my sheer kinetic weight is completely unstoppable. I violently ram my heavily armored front chassis directly into the beast's chest. The impact is absolutely massive, aggressively sending a violent shockwave through the entire volcanic basin. I don't stop pushing. I violently force the rapidly spinning industrial drills directly into the basilisk's thick black scales. The heavy steel bits aggressively chew through the Tier 6 natural armor, violently tearing deep into the monster's chest cavity. The basilisk screams in absolute agony, violently thrashing its massive body, heavily spraying thick black blood all over my kinetic shield. The heavy drills violently expose the beast's inner flesh. That's exactly what I was waiting for. I immediately activate my Tier 4 elemental artillery from my second-story command tower. The heavy pneumatic cannon aggressively deploys, aiming directly down at the massive open wound in the beast's chest. Ding! Elemental artillery fired at point-blank range. A massive, violently glowing projectile of molten rock and compressed dirt aggressively shoots out of the cannon and violently slams straight into the basilisk's exposed chest cavity. The explosion is completely devastating. The violent blast aggressively rips the beast's internal organs to absolute shreds. The Tier 6 obsidian basilisk goes completely rigid, its massive eyes violently rolling back into its head before its huge body violently collapses onto the molten rocks with a deafening thud. Ding. Tier 6 hostile entity neutralized. I immediately deploy my subterranean roots, aggressively plunging my thick stone tendrils directly into the beast's massive corpse. I violently activate my raw extraction protocol, completely siphoning the beast's residual life force and aggressively ripping its highly condensed Tier 6 monster core straight out of its chest. Ding! Massive energy surge detected. Tier 6 beast core absorbed. 4,000 energy points acquired. Core system upgrade requirements met. Initiating level 6 evolution. A violently blinding blue light aggressively erupts from my core. My structural framework violently hums with overwhelming power. Ding. Level 6 reached. Tier 6 biointegration catalog unlocked. Automated repair node module unlocked. I can literally feel my system expanding, completely rewriting its own architectural limits. The entire crater goes completely dead silent. The surviving members of the Silver Fang Guild are standing there completely paralyzed with fear. They just watched a moving building effortlessly slaughter a Tier 6 boss monster in under 30 seconds. But Thorn's arrogant greed completely overrides his basic survival instincts. He violently shakes off his shock and aggressively marches down from his rock outcropping, heavily stomping right up to my kinetic shield. He violently points his glowing tamer's whip directly at my front door. "You listen to me, you stupid piece of rogue machinery." Thorn arrogantly roars, completely puffing out his chest. That beast was our target. This entire volcanic crater falls under the strict legal jurisdiction of the Silver Fang Guild. You are illegally trespassing on my private property. I demand you power down your shield and immediately hand over that Tier 6 core, or I will have the entire Guild Alliance officially dismantle you for parts. I let out a cold, heavily mocking laugh in my mind. Legal jurisdiction? Out here in the lawless frontier wastes? In my past life as a royal guard, I dealt with arrogant, entitled nobles exactly like him every single day. They completely rely on their fancy titles and guild badges to violently bully anyone weaker than them, entirely expecting the rest of the world to just roll over and obey. He actually thinks he can threaten a level 6 living fortress with a piece of paper. I don't even bother responding with words. I immediately pull up my Tier 5 automated defenses command menu. Ding. Attack command issued. The 4 massive, violently intimidating limestone gargoyles perched on my second-story roof aggressively spread their heavy stone wings. They violently detach from their corner nodes and aggressively dive bomb straight off the tower. Thorn doesn't even have time to swing his whip. 4 gargoyles violently slam directly into him, their razor-sharp stone claws aggressively digging right into his expensive silver armor. Thorn violently gasps, heavily choking on his own breath as the gargoyles aggressively lift him straight up into the air. "Hey, what are you doing? Put me down." Thorn violently shrieks, frantically thrashing his legs in a total panic. "Do you have any idea who I am?" "I am a level 35 guildmaster." The gargoyles completely ignore his pathetic screaming. They aggressively carry him directly over the massive, violently bubbling volcanic vent right in the center of the crater. I lock onto their system interface and casually issue my final command. Ding. Gargoyle flight logic deactivated. The 4 stone constructs immediately fold their wings and violently drop Thorn straight down. Thorn screams in absolute, mind-shattering agony as he violently plummets directly into the boiling lava pool. His expensive enchanted armor doesn't do a single thing to save him. He is violently incinerated in a matter of seconds, his body completely melting into the molten rock with a sickening hiss. Ding. Hostile entity neutralized. The remaining tamers watch their guildmaster get completely deleted from existence. Their faces drain of all color. They violently throw their weapons onto the obsidian rocks, aggressively turning around and frantically sprinting out of the crater, completely screaming their lungs out. I don't even bother deploying my artillery to stop them. They are completely worthless to me. With the annoying pests fully cleared out, Elizabeth confidently kicks open my heavy iron door and aggressively steps out onto the hot obsidian ground. She is completely unfazed by the heat or the carnage. She rapidly walks right past the basilisk's crushed corpse and aggressively climbs up into the beast's massive nesting cave carved into the crater wall. A few minutes later, she confidently walks back out carrying a heavy sack completely loaded with highly condensed, raw volcanic ores. But more importantly, she is carefully holding a massive, pitch-black, unhatched Tier 6 basilisk egg. This is an incredibly rare find, a completely pure, untamed Tier 6 beast core waiting to be born. She aggressively tosses the heavy sack of ores directly onto my front porch. I instantly absorb the raw materials into my foundation nodes. Ding. 1,000 energy points acquired. I check my massive energy reserves and immediately pull up my newly unlocked movement catalog. I can't keep driving heavy limestone treads over highly unstable molten rock if I want to explore deeper volcanic zones. I rapidly select the exact upgrade I need. Ding. 2,500 energy points consumed. Tier 6 all-terrain grav hover modules constructed. A violently loud mechanical shifting violently rips through my undercarriage. My heavy limestone tracks aggressively retract directly into my steel chassis, rapidly replaced by massive, violently glowing anti-gravity repulsor nodes. My entire 100 square meter fortress violently lifts 2 feet straight off the ground, perfectly hovering over the jagged obsidian without making a single sound. Elizabeth confidently walks back inside, aggressively carrying the basilisk egg straight into my expanded secondary room to safely secure it in a heavily reinforced storage bay. As she sets it down, she violently pulls out a small, heavily glowing communication crystal she looted from Thorn's dropped belongings before he took his lava bath. She aggressively taps the crystal, instantly intercepting an open, unencrypted broadcast heavily echoing across the Frontier frequency. Attention all Frontier merchants and guild leaders. The underground black market auction in the independent city of Oakhaven will commence in exactly 3 days. We have successfully secured a massive shipment of high-grade spatial upgrade materials and rare dimensional cores. Bring your silver. I instantly lock on to the transmission coordinates. Spatial upgrade materials. That is exactly what I need to aggressively push my spatial expansion module to the next tier and completely overhaul my internal dimensional footprint. I don't waste another second. I aggressively route power to my newly installed grav hover modules. The repulsor nodes violently hum with raw energy as I effortlessly float right up the steep, violently jagged walls of the volcanic crater. I smoothly clear the rim and aggressively rotate my massive chassis directly toward the northern frontier. Next stop, Oakhaven. I push my repulsor nodes to the absolute limit, aggressively tearing through the dense forest perimeter just outside the independent city of Oakhaven. I bring my massive 100 square meter chassis to a dead halt, perfectly hovering directly behind a thick cluster of ancient trees. I can't exactly roll a heavily armed, multi-story limestone fortress straight through the front gates of a heavily populated trading hub without triggering a massive citywide panic. Elizabeth has to go in alone to secure the spatial materials. But there's absolutely no way I'm sending her into an underground black market auction completely unprotected. I immediately pull up my system interface and access the newly unlocked Tier 6 Biointegration Catalog. Ding. 500 energy points consumed. Biomechanical sensory bracer constructed. A heavily glowing, dark metallic band aggressively extrudes from my interior steel bulkheads and drops right into Elizabeth's hand. I mentally link with the item, instantly analyzing its data. The bracer isn't just a piece of armor. It strictly acts as a direct extension of my own core system. It grants me complete shared perception, allowing me to see and hear everything Elizabeth does, and more importantly, it lets me aggressively channel my localized mana manipulation directly through her position. Elizabeth doesn't even hesitate. She confidently snaps the heavy metal bracer onto her left wrist, grabs the bag of stolen ironclad guild silver, and casually walks straight out of my iron door toward the city gates. Through the bracer's shared perception, my vision perfectly syncs with hers. Oakhaven's underground market is absolutely packed with arrogant nobles and shady merchants wearing expensive silk robes and flashing heavily enchanted rings. Elizabeth confidently marches straight up to the registration desk, slamming down a heavy stack of ironclad guild silver to bypass the VIP background check. She casually walks right into the main auction hall and takes a seat in the front row. The current item on the auction block is exactly what I came for. The auctioneer pulls away a heavy velvet cloth, revealing a massive grade A spatial matrix crystal. The sheer density of the dimensional energy coming off the crystal makes my core system hum with anticipation. The starting bid is set at 2,000 silver. The arrogant nobles in the room immediately start whispering, preparing to engage in a slow, tedious bidding war. Elizabeth doesn't give them a single second. She aggressively raises her bidding paddle and shouts, 4,000 silver. The entire auction hall goes completely dead silent. The crowd of wealthy elites snap their heads toward her, their faces twisting in absolute disgust. Who the hell is this filthy slum rat? A fat merchant whispers loudly. 4,000 silver? She's probably a thief. Get her out of here. I hear every single word through the sensory link. I let out a cold laugh in my mind. These pathetic weaklings constantly judge everything by outward appearance. They have absolutely no idea she has an entire heavily armed mobile fortress backing her up. Before the auctioneer can even slam his gavel, a heavily armored young noble kicks open the VP balcony doors and jumps down to the main floor. I instantly scan his energy signature. Lord Cedric, level 38, heir to the Silver Fang Guild. He's surrounded by 6 level 35 elite guards heavily armed with enchanted broadswords. Cedric marches straight up to Elizabeth, his eyes completely locked onto the heavily glowing communication crystal securely attached to her leather belt. I instantly recognize the situation. It's Thorn's crystal. The guildmaster I just melted in a volcano less than 2 hours ago. Cedric's face completely contorts in extreme rage. Where did you get that crystal, you pathetic slum trash? Cedric roars, pointing his heavy steel gauntlet directly at Elizabeth's face. That belongs to Guildmaster Thorn. You're illegally carrying stolen Silver Fang property. Guards completely lock down this entire building, detain this filthy thief, and confiscate every single item she has. The 6 elite guards instantly draw their heavy broadswords, surrounding Elizabeth in a tight circle. The crowd of cowardly nobles instantly backs away, frantically whispering to each other. She actually crossed the Silver Fang Guild? She's completely dead meat. Cedric's an absolute psycho. He'll torture her for days. Cedric doesn't even wait for his guards to act. His eyes flash with extreme greed as he aggressively reaches his hand straight toward the auction podium to illegally seize the grade A spatial matrix crystal for himself. I don't hesitate for a single microsecond. You want to touch my loot? Let's see if you can keep your hand. I forcefully channel a massive surge of raw system energy directly through Elizabeth's biobracer. Ding. Localized kinetic mana shield deployed. A crackling, highly condensed barrier of pure blue energy erupts directly from Elizabeth's wrist, perfectly forming a hardened magical wall right in front of the spatial crystal. Cedric's hand slams directly into the kinetic shield at full speed. The impact produces a violently loud, sickening crunch. Cedric's fingers snap completely backward. He shrieks in absolute mind-shattering agony, stumbling backward as he clutches his completely ruined hand. His face instantly drains of all color. What the hell is that? Cedric screams, frantically spitting out saliva. She's using high-tier artifact magic. Break her arms and drag her out of here. I let out a completely ruthless sneer. I'm totally done waiting in the woods. I instantly route maximum power to my tier 6 all-terrain grav hover modules. My massive 100 square meter chassis hums to life, shooting straight out of the forest at completely terrifying speeds. I don't care about the city perimeter. I don't care about the municipal laws. I ram my heavily armored front chassis directly into Oakhaven's outer stone wall. The massive 10-meter tall barricade completely explodes into thousands of heavy stone fragments. The deafening crash echoes across the entire trading hub. I don't even slow down. I drive my heavy limestone mass straight down the main merchant avenue, crushing market stalls and heavy supply crates straight into the dirt. I lock onto Elizabeth's exact coordinates and ram my massive bulk right through the front doors of the black market auction house. The entire front half of the building is completely obliterated. My towering, multi-story command tower forces its way right into the main hall, dropping the heavy ceiling rafters directly onto the floor. 3 of Cedric's elite guards don't even have time to scream. My massive hover tracks drop down, heavily pinning all 3 of them directly under my limestone chassis. The sheer kinetic weight crushes their rib cages instantly. Ding. 3 hostile entities neutralized. The civilian attendees completely lose their minds. They frantically scream in total absolute terror, trampling each other as they scramble out of the collapsing building. It's a monster, a rogue living fortress. Run for your lives. Cedric is completely hyperventilating, his eyes bulging out of his skull as he stares up at my massive armored form. Kill it. He shrieks, frantically hiding behind his remaining men. Cast lightning. Melt its core right now. The 3 surviving level 35 guards frantically begin chanting, charging massive bolts of highly condensed lightning magic in their hands. They're completely stupid. I don't give them a single second to cast. I immediately activate my tier 5 automated defenses. Ding! Attack command issued. My 4 massive limestone gargoyles detach from my 2nd story roof corners. They dive bomb straight down into the auction hall, spreading their razor-sharp stone wings. The mages frantically try to cancel their spells and run, but they're way too slow. The gargoyles slam directly into them, driving their heavy stone claws straight through the mages' chests and impaling them directly against the heavy stone rubble. Blood sprays across the expensive velvet carpets. Ding! 3 hostile entities neutralized. Cedric is the only one left standing. His arrogant aristocratic pride completely vanishes, replaced by absolute pure terror. He frantically turns around and desperately tries to crawl toward the back exit. I manipulate my external architecture. A thick, highly reinforced steel pipe extrudes straight out of my forward chassis, shooting forward like a massive spear. The heavy steel slams directly into Cedric's chest, heavily pinning him completely flat against the wooden floorboards. He spits up a massive mouthful of blood, desperately thrashing his legs against the ground. Elizabeth confidently walks right past the crushed guards, completely ignoring the absolute carnage around her. She casually reaches out and securely grabs the Greatest Spatial Matrix crystal from the ruined podium, safely storing it in her pouch. Then she walks right up to the pinned noble and stares down at him with absolute cold disgust. "Hand over your VAP storage ring," she demands coldly. Cedric frantically grits his teeth, his face completely twisting in pathetic defiance. "You filthy peasant." He spits, desperately trying to sound intimidating. "You have absolutely no idea what you're doing. I'm the heir to the Silver Fang Guild. My father will hunt you down. He'll completely tear this pathetic machine to scrap and sell you to the lowest slave pits." He really thinks he still has the right to make threats while heavily pinned under my steel pipe. In my past life, I dealt with spoiled, entitled aristocrats just like him. They think their bloodline makes them completely invincible. I refuse to tolerate this level of arrogant stupidity. I immediately activate my tier 4 elemental artillery from my 2nd story command tower. I rapidly adjust the targeting trajectory, aiming the heavy pneumatic cannon directly down at his right leg. Ding! Artillery fired. A highly compressed projectile of condensed dirt and raw kinetic energy shoots out of the barrel and slams straight into Cedric's kneecap. The heavy impact completely shatters his leg into a million pieces. Cedric screams in absolute mind-shattering agony. His voice completely cracks as he frantically claws at the floorboards, wildly sobbing uncontrollably. The smug superiority is entirely gone. "Please," he begs, frantically ripping the heavily glowing VIP storage ring off his finger and holding it up to Elizabeth. "Take it. Take everything. Just let me live. I promise the guild won't come after you. Please don't kill me." Elizabeth casually snatches the storage ring from his trembling hand. I scan the contents through the BioBracer's connection. 10,000 silver coins and a massive level 40 wind core. A completely massive haul. But I'm not leaving any loose ends behind. Sparing an arrogant noble after crippling him is just openly inviting completely unnecessary trouble. I plunge my subterranean root tendrils straight through the wooden floorboards and stab them directly into Cedric's back. I instantly activate my raw mana extraction protocol, completely siphoning his entire life force and draining his remaining mana pool completely dry in a matter of seconds. Cedric twitches once before his eyes roll back into his skull. Ding. Hostile entity neutralized. I don't waste another second. I extend a stone tendril and absorb the grade A spatial matrix crystal directly from Elizabeth's hand, followed instantly by the level 40 wind core. The massive influx of high-tier dimensional and elemental energy floods my core system. Ding. Massive energy surge detected. 3,500 energy points acquired. Core system upgrade requirements met. Initiating level 7 evolution. A blinding blue light erupts from my central chassis. My heavy steel bulkheads hum with overwhelming architectural power. I can literally feel my internal dimensions completely tearing themselves apart and expanding in every single direction. Ding. Level 7 reached. Tier 7 dimensional architecture catalog unlocked. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. I immediately access the new catalog and spend my accumulated points. Ding. 2,000 energy points consumed. My internal volume shifts instantly. My previously cramped secondary rooms expand into a massive 500 square meter multi-level facility. Heavy steel walkways extrude across the interior, connecting a heavily upgraded storage vault and a fully automated resource refinery. But the most important addition forms right in the center of the new lower level. A heavily reinforced, specialized thermal incubation chamber explicitly designed for the Tier 6 basilisk egg. Perfect. The Oakhaven Municipal Guard forces are already frantically blowing their warning horns in the distance, rushing toward the auction house. I'm completely done here. I aim my Tier 3 roof ballistas at the remaining heavy structural pillars of the main hall. I fire 4 massive steel harpoons simultaneously. The heavy cables retract, tearing the pillars straight out of their foundations. The entire massive ceiling of the auction house collapses downward, completely burying Cedric's corpse and all the evidence under hundreds of tons of heavy rubble. I reverse my all-terrain grav hover modules, spinning my massive chassis around and tearing straight back out of the city perimeter before the guards can even mobilize. I reverse my all-terrain grav hover modules, spinning my massive chassis around and tearing straight back out of the city perimeter before the guards can even mobilize. I'm already miles deep into the heavy timber before the Oakhaven ground forces even figure out which direction I went. I keep my hover modules locked at maximum output, snapping thick tree trunks like dry twigs under my 100 square meter chassis. Elizabeth stands completely calm in the newly expanded command room, checking the grade A spatial matrix crystal we just stole. I check my system interface, fully intending to put another 50 miles between us and the city, but then my structural perception picks up a massive disturbance directly above the forest canopy. I instantly shift my sensor focus upward. A squad of high-speed targets is diving straight toward my roof. I pull up their data. Commander Draven, level 40, riding at the front of a 10-man squad of Oakhaven aerial guards. They're all mounted on level 40 Storm Grayfons. These aren't the pathetic slum thugs I crushed yesterday. These are elite military enforcers, and they're completely locked onto my mana signature. Fleeing merchants scattered in the forest below look up and start pointing. It's the aerial guard, one of them yells. Commander Draven is going to tear that rogue construct apart. That thing killed Lord Cedric. It's completely dead meat. I hear every single word through my external audio receptors. I let out a cold laugh in my mind. These pathetic weaklings constantly judge everything by outward appearance. They actually think a few overleveled birds can stop a Tier 7 dimensional fortress. Draven pulls his Griffin into a steep dive, matching my hover speed perfectly. "You piece of rogue scrap!" Draven roars from the sky, his voice amplified by wind magic. "You actually think you can murder the heir to the Silver Fang Guild and just drive away? I'm completely dismantling you right here, and I'm selling whoever is inside to the lowest slave pits." He really thinks his badge makes him completely invincible. He doesn't even wait for a response. Draven issues a hand signal to his squad. Tear its tracks off. Flip it over. The 10 riders instantly start chanting, holding their heavy staffs out toward my chassis. I immediately analyze the incoming magical structure. They're casting highly compressed, localized tornadoes directly underneath my grav hover modules. I do the math instantly. My limestone chassis is incredibly heavy, but 10 level 40 wind spells, creating a concentrated upward draft, will easily generate enough lift to flip my entire structure upside down. If my undercarriage is exposed, I'll lose all mobility. They think they have me completely cornered. They have absolutely no idea what I just unlocked. I instantly access the Tier 7 dimensional architecture catalog. Ding. 1,000 energy points consumed. External gravity inversion field deployed. A heavily pulsing ring of localized spatial distortion completely blankets the 100-meter radius around my exterior. I don't just block the wind spells, I completely reverse the gravitational constant of the air pressure. The 10 localized tornadoes hit my undercarriage and instantly invert, violently pulling downward instead of pushing upward. The sudden shift in physics completely destroys the Grayfon's natural flight mechanics. The 5 riders flying directly beneath Draven lose their lift instantly. Their mounts screech in absolute terror as the inverted gravity slams them straight down into the heavy timber. The impact is brutal. 5 level 40 Storm Grayfons crash directly through the thick branches, violently smashing into the dirt at terminal velocity. I don't even need to look to know the outcome. Ding. 5 hostile entities neutralized. The system chimes coldly in my mind. Draven's face completely drains of all color. He violently yanks his reins, desperately pulling his Grayfon up to avoid the inversion field. The remaining 5 riders scatter in pure panic. What the hell is that? Draven screams, his eyes wide with absolute shock. It's using high-tier spatial magic. Land on the roof. Breach the steel bulkheads. Cut the pilot out. He really doesn't know when to quit. I drop the gravity field and completely cut my forward momentum. If they want to come inside so badly, I'll gladly open the front door. I manipulate my external architecture, deliberately sliding my heavy roof hatch wide open. It's a completely obvious trap, but Draven is too blinded by his own arrogant rage to see it. He thinks he's forcing a breach. He commands his Grayfon to drop, jumping right off the saddle and plunging straight through the open hatch. 3 of his elite riders blindly follow him right into my interior. The second the 4th set of boots hits my floorboards, I aggressively slam the heavy steel roof hatch completely shut, locking it with multiple reinforced deadbolts. The 5th rider is permanently locked outside. Draven and his 3 men stand up, expecting to find a cramped, exposed control room. Instead, they find themselves standing right in the middle of a massive 500 square meter multi-level facility. Heavy steel walkways stretch out in every direction. Draven gasps, sucking in a breath of cold air. Spatial expansion, he mutters, his arrogant superiority completely vanishing. This isn't a construct. This is a tier 7 artifact. Before they can even take a single step, I initiate a rapid internal floor plan shift. The heavy steel bulkheads aggressively slide out of the walls and ceiling, slamming down into the floorboards. I completely isolate Draven, trapping him inside a heavily reinforced airlock corridor right near the thermal incubation chamber, while completely separating his 3 riders into an adjacent dead-end hallway. I don't give the 3 riders a single second to coordinate. They frantically bang their heavy fists against the steel bulkheads, desperately screaming for their commander. I immediately activate my internal pneumatic turrets, deploying them directly from the ceiling panels of their hallway. Ding! Attack command issued. The turrets fire a relentless volley of highly compressed limestone spikes. The heavy stone projectiles tear straight through their expensive military armor like wet paper. The 3 riders are pierced instantly, pinned directly to the steel walls. Blood pools on the grating. Ding. 3 hostile entities neutralized. Draven hears the screams through the bulkhead. His eyes flash with extreme killing intent. He completely loses his mind. "I'm gonna melt your core down to slag," he roars. He reaches over his shoulder and pulls out a massive, heavily enchanted military-grade lightning lance. The weapon crackles with raw electrical power, visibly warping the air around it. He aims the lance directly at the steel bulkhead separating him from the main facility, fully intending to blast his way out. Elizabeth calmly steps out onto the upper steel walkway, looking completely down at him. She's wearing the biomechanical sensory bracer I crafted for her. Draven spots her and sneers. "A little slum rat is piloting this thing? You're completely dead." He charges the lightning lance to maximum output, preparing to vaporize the entire upper walkway. I don't hesitate. I force a massive surge of system energy directly through Elizabeth's bracer. Ding. Kinetic mana shield deployed. A thick barrier of highly condensed blue energy perfectly forms right in front of Elizabeth. Draven thrusts the lance forward, unleashing a massive torrent of level 40 lightning directly at her. The electrical blast slams directly into the kinetic shield. Instead of breaking, the shield absorbs the kinetic impact and violently forces the raw mana straight back into the weapon. The feedback loop is instant. The military-grade lightning lance completely overloads. The heavy metal staff explodes right in Draven's hands. He shrieks in absolute mind-shattering agony as the blast completely severs his right arm at the elbow. He spits up a mouthful of blood and heavily collapses onto the steel floorboards, frantically clutching his ruined stump. He's completely finished. But the residual lightning mana from the explosion doesn't just dissipate. The stray electrical arcs travel straight through the heavy steel floorboards, aggressively grounding themselves directly into the thermal incubation chamber, sitting only a few feet away. The massive influx of raw elemental energy acts as a catalyst. The Tier 6 basilisk egg inside the chamber violently absorbs the stray lightning. The heavy stone shell cracks down the middle. A juvenile storm basilisk pushes its way out. Its dark scales crackle with blue static electricity. It shakes off the shell fragments and looks straight up. It doesn't look at Draven. It locks its eyes directly onto Elizabeth standing on the walkway above. Ding. Biological imprint complete. Relationship status updated. The hatchling completely ignores the screaming guard commander. It recognizes Elizabeth as its master. Draven is thrashing on the floor, his face completely pale from the blood loss. "You don't understand what you're doing," he begs, desperately trying to crawl backward. "I'm a commissioned officer of the Oakhaven Aerial Guard. If you kill me, the city will declare absolute martial law. They'll send the entire army after you." He really thinks his empty military titles still matter while he's bleeding out on my floorboards. The juvenile storm basilisk turns its head toward the noise. It opens its jaws and aggressively spits a concentrated glob of crackling blue neurotoxin directly into Draven's face. The paralyzing venom acts instantly. Draven's entire body violently seizes up. He completely loses the ability to speak or move, completely immobilized on the cold steel. Elizabeth casually walks down the heavy metal stairs, her face showing absolute apathy toward his pathetic threats. She completely ignores his panicked, wide-eyed stare. She walks right up to his paralyzed body, forcefully grabbing his remaining hand, and casually yanks the Greta military storage ring straight off his finger. She secures it in her pouch without saying a single word. I don't waste any more time. I plunge my internal subterranean root tendrils straight through the grating, stabbing them directly into Draven's chest and the 3 dead riders in the adjacent hall. I instantly activate my raw mana extraction protocol, completely siphoning their high-level life force and draining their remaining mana pools completely dry. Draven's eyes roll back into his skull as his body turns into a lifeless husk. Ding. Massive energy surge detected. 4,500 energy points acquired. Core system upgrade requirements met. Initiating level 8 evolution. The massive influx of high-tier military mana floods my core processor. My steel bulkheads aggressively reinforce themselves. I can feel my sensory range expanding drastically outward. Ding. Level 8 reached. Tier 8 aerial levitation catalog unlocked. Localized mana pulse radar unlocked. I immediately open the new catalog. Hover modules are useful, but being restricted to ground-level terrain is completely holding me back. Ding. 3,000 energy points consumed. My undercarriage completely shifts. The heavy limestone hover tracks retract inward, aggressively replacing themselves with 4 massive, continuous anti-gravity flight engines. I route maximum power to the new propulsion system. My 100 square meter chassis heavily lifts off the dirt, breaking entirely free from the forest floor. I aggressively elevate straight up, smashing my heavy roof right through the thick timber branches, and smoothly rise completely above the forest canopy into the open sky. I'm no longer just a mobile fortress. I'm a fully operational flying citadel. Elizabeth stands in the command room, casually sorting through the contents of Draven's military storage ring. She pulls out a heavily sealed official dispatch and breaks the wax. "Jack," she says, quickly reading over the document. "This is an official Oakhaven military route map. There's a high-yield adamantine supply convoy traversing the Silver Peaks tomorrow morning. It's heavily guarded, but they're carrying raw Tier 8 metals." I check the newly unlocked localized mana pulse radar. The Silver Peaks are well within my flight range. Adamantine is exactly the kind of ultra-rare structural reinforcement I need to push my next evolution. I don't hesitate. I instantly adjust my anti-gravity engines and set a direct flight path straight toward the mountains. Elizabeth casually sits down on the floorboards, pulling out a handful of raw mana crystals to feed her newly imprinted Storm Basilisk companion. Elizabeth casually sits down on the floorboards, pulling out a handful of raw mana crystals to feed her newly imprinted Storm Basilisk companion. She tosses a glowing blue crystal to the little beast, and it eagerly snaps it out of the air, chewing with loud crunches, while blue electrical sparks dance across its dark scales. I don't pay them much attention right now because my entire focus is locked onto my newly acquired level 8 localized mana pulse radar. I keep my anti-gravity flight engines running at a steady hum, completely bypassing the dense forest canopy below. I'm scanning the map for the Silver Peaks Ridge. Adamantine is a Tier 8 material, an ultra-rare structural reinforcement that is practically impossible to find in standard markets. If I can secure a massive stockpile of it, my defensive capabilities will completely skyrocket. Ping, ping, ping. 5 massive, highly condensed energy signatures light up my radar interface like bonfires in the dark. I immediately adjust my visual sensors and look down at the jagged mountain pass. There they are. 5 heavily armored transport carriages crawling slowly along the narrow Silver Peaks ridge, completely loaded down with heavy crates of raw adamantine ore. I pull up the data on the heavily armed escort leading the formation. Target: Commander Varys. Level 45 Royal Vanguard. He's riding at the very front on a massive armored warhorse, wearing a full set of enchanted platinum plate armor that practically screams arrogant aristocrat. He's exactly the kind of entitled elite I've been crushing lately. Varys suddenly pulls back on his reins, his horse stomping the dirt, and he looks straight up into the sky. He spots my 100-square-meter chassis hovering silently above them. His eyes widen for a split second before his face twists into a sneer of pure, unfiltered contempt. What kind of rogue garbage is flying in my sky? Varys yells, his voice dripping with authority. He pulls his broadsword and points it straight at my undercarriage. Artillery units, bring that floating rock down right now. I want it completely dismantled for scrap metal. The soldiers in the back of the transport carriages immediately scramble to man these massive, heavy steel ballistas mounted on the rear wagons. They load them and fire a rapid volley of thick, tethered mana harpoons straight up at my chassis. I don't even try to dodge. Ding. Kinetic mana shield deployed. The heavy steel harpoons slam directly into my blue energy barrier. The kinetic impact is entirely absorbed, completely failing to even scratch my limestone exterior. The soldiers holding the tethers jerk forward, nearly pulling their own arms out of their sockets from the recoil. What is that thing made of? One of the artillerymen screams, his face draining of all color. I let out a cold laugh in my mind. You really think a few basic iron spikes can pierce a tier 8 flying citadel? I instantly route more power to my anti-gravity flight engines and aggressively increase my altitude, completely pulling myself out of their effective firing range. The heavy chains snap taut and the harpoons helplessly fall back down toward the mountain pass, dragging heavily against the dirt. Don't let it escape, Varys roars. He's completely losing his mind over a flying building. He has absolutely no idea I'm not running away. I'm just getting into a better bombing position. I pull up my tier 5 automated defenses catalog. Ding. 800 energy points consumed. 4 animated limestone gargoyles aggressively detach from my roof corners. I don't even bother giving them flight commands or attack patterns. I just let them drop. They plummet straight down like massive multi-ton boulders. Varys looks up and his pupils contract sharply. Incoming, he screams desperately, yanking his warhorse to the side. He barely dodges the impact, but his vanguard isn't so lucky. The 4 gargoyles smash directly into the 2 lead carriages with a deafening crunch. The heavy transport wagons are completely flattened into splintered wood and twisted metal. The horses and the vanguard soldiers are instantly crushed into paste under the sheer, unstoppable weight of the stone constructs. Ding. Convoy vanguard destroyed. Varys spits up a mouthful of blood from the shockwave and scrambles back to his feet. He's completely humiliated, his shiny platinum armor heavily covered in dirt and gore. Geomancers, bind it. Drag it down to the earth right now. He orders. 10 royal mages in the center of the formation step forward, their staffs glowing with intense yellow light. They all chant in unison, casting a massive synchronized earthbind spell. I feel a heavy gravitational pull latch onto my chassis. They actually want to use the weight of the earth to ground me. They really think basic earth magic works against a system-upgraded dimensional fortress. I instantly access my tier 8 aerial levitation module. You want to play with gravity? Fine, let's see how you handle it. I aggressively project my external gravity inversion field directly over their position on the mountain pass. The localized gravity around the 10 geomancers completely reverses in a split second. The Earthbind spell instantly shatters into harmless sparks of mana. The mages gasp in pure shock as their boots leave the dirt. Help me! One of them shrieks, dropping his staff as he realizes he's falling upward. It doesn't matter what they do. The inversion field aggressively launches all 10 of them straight up into the open sky. They scream in absolute terror, flailing their arms as they're pulled 100 feet into the air right past my hovering chassis. I look at them through my visual sensors. They look completely pathetic, waving their hands in the sky. I casually deactivate field. The gravity instantly snaps back to normal. The 10 mages stop in mid-air for a split second before the planet reclaims them. They plummet straight back down, smashing directly into the jagged mountain rocks below with a series of sickening thuds. Ding. 10 hostile entities neutralized. The surviving soldiers look at the shattered bodies of their elite mages and completely lose their nerve. "It's a demon! Run!" One of the guards yells, throwing his spear on the ground, but I'm not letting anyone leave with my adamantine. Down in the command room, Elizabeth doesn't even wait for my signal to join the fight. She kicks the heavy steel secondary hatch wide open and looks down at the chaotic convoy. She grabs her juvenile storm basilisk and casually tosses it straight out the hatch. The hatchling plummets down and lands heavily right on top of the central adamantine carriage. It doesn't even take a second to orient itself. It opens its jaws and aggressively unleashes a massive chain lightning breath attack. Thick bolts of blue electricity arc through the metal carriage, instantly chaining to the 20 royal guards surrounding the cargo. The guards instantly seize up, their expensive royal armor acting as perfect conductors for the raw electrical output. They all collapse to the ground simultaneously, completely paralyzed and drooling on the dirt. Elizabeth casually drops down from the hatch, landing perfectly on the carriage roof. She completely ignores the twitching soldiers and immediately starts prying open the heavy adamantine crates. "Jack, this is pure Greta ore," she yells, grinning widely at the massive haul. Varys hears her voice and turns around. His eyes lock onto Elizabeth and his face twists into a mask of pure homicidal rage. "A slum rat is behind this?" He roars, spitting blood on the dirt. "I'm gonna carve you into pieces." He draws a high-tier wind sword from his hip. The blade hums with compressed razor wind magic, easily capable of slicing through solid steel. He charges straight at her, fully intending to execute her in a single strike. He really thinks I'm just gonna sit up here and watch him attack my pilot. I completely cut the power to my anti-gravity flight engines. My entire 100 square meter chassis instantly becomes dead weight in the sky. I execute a rapid, completely unbraked descent. Varys only has a split second to look up before my massive limestone undercarriage slams directly down onto his position. He screams and desperately thrusts his hands up, activating a level 45 aura shield. A dome of thick golden energy forms over him. The sheer kinetic impact of my 100-ton chassis hitting his shield is completely deafening. The ground beneath him instantly craters from the force, but the level 45 shield actually holds. He stops my physical momentum entirely. Varys is on his knees, holding the shield up with everything he has, his arms trembling under the insane pressure. He grits his teeth and forces a bloody smirk. "You can't break my aura, you piece of garbage. I'm a royal vanguard. I'll hold you here until reinforcements arrive." He's really proud of that little golden bubble. He doesn't realize he just trapped himself directly underneath my central exhaust port. I instantly access my internal resource smelter. I aggressively redirect the automated thermal exhaust systems, completely bypassing all the safety valves. I vent a massive, concentrated stream of raw superheated plasma directly straight down onto his aura shield. The temperature spikes to thousands of degrees in a single second. Varys' smug smile completely vanishes. His face drains of all color. "No, wait." He begs, panic completely taking over his eyes as the golden shield begins to aggressively crack. The sustained heat overload is entirely too much for his defensive magic. The golden aura shield instantly shatters like cheap glass. The raw plasma washes directly over him. He doesn't even have time to scream. Commander Varys is instantly incinerated, reduced to a blackened pile of ash and melted platinum armor right on the mountain dirt. Ding. Commander Varys neutralized. The few surviving soldiers in the rear watch their level 45 commander get vaporized in less than 3 seconds. They don't even try to fight back. They drop their weapons, turn around, and frantically flee back down the mountain pass, completely abandoning the cargo. I couldn't care less about chasing them. I extend my heavy subterranean root tendrils straight out of my chassis and aggressively plunge them into the 5 carriages of raw adamantine ore. At the same time, I stab my roots into the concentrated mana pools of the deceased vanguard soldiers and the incinerated commander. Ding. Raw materials processed. High-tier mana extracted. 8,000 energy points acquired. Core system upgrade requirements met. Initiating level 9 evolution. The massive influx of energy aggressively surges through my core processor. My structural foundation groans loudly as the system rapidly overwrites my internal architecture. Ding! Level 9 reached. Tier 9 indestructible alloy catalog unlocked. I don't hesitate for a single second. I immediately open the new catalog. I've been waiting for this exact upgrade to push my defense to the absolute limit. Ding. 6,000 energy points consumed, fusing adamantine into structural core. The entire mountain pass lights up as a blinding metallic aura wraps around my exterior. My basic limestone block exterior aggressively hardens, shifting in color from dull gray to a dark, heavily reflective metallic black. I completely convert my outer shell into solid adamantine plating. Ding. Evolution complete. Passive immunity to all magical attacks below level 50 acquired. I feel the sheer density of my new armor. No more dodging basic spells. Any low-level mage that tries to attack me now is going to find their magic completely useless. Elizabeth hops off the carriage and walks over to the smoking pile of ash that used to be Commander Varys. She casually kicks a melted piece of his breastplate aside and reaches down, picking up a heavily sealed command scroll that somehow survived the heat. She breaks the royal wax seal and unrolls the parchment, reading the manifest aloud. Jack, this wasn't just a random supply run. This adamantine was officially requisitioned by the capital. It's meant to forge a new set of royal armaments. She pauses, her eyes scanning the bottom of the document, and her expression tightens. It's signed by Crown Prince Alaric. The moment I hear that name, my entire core processor completely stutters. Crown Prince Alaric, the exact same coward I swore my life to protect in my previous life. The man who looked me dead in the eyes and handed me over to enemy assassins just to buy himself 3 extra minutes to run away. I can still vividly remember the feeling of those poisoned blades sliding into my back while he sprinted toward his carriage without a single look backward. I died bleeding in the dirt while he saved his own pathetic life. Cold, absolute homicidal focus aggressively surges through every single inch of my adamantine frame. The system registers the massive spike in my killing intent. Elizabeth keeps reading the scroll. The document states Alaric will be personally inspecting the completed armaments at the capital's outer bastion. That review is scheduled to happen in exactly 2 days. He wants to inspect his shiny new weapons. He thinks he's sitting safe behind his high walls, completely untouchable. He has absolutely no idea what's coming for him. I don't even wait for Elizabeth to finish talking. I instantly recalibrate my anti-gravity flight engines, completely ignoring the rest of the mining zone. I force maximum power into my propulsion modules and aggressively pivot my massive black metallic chassis in the sky. I set a direct, unyielding aerial course straight for the royal capital, preparing to use my mobile fortress to obliterate the military review and crush his skull. I push the anti-gravity flight engines to their absolute maximum output, completely ignoring the structural strain warnings flashing across my interface. I don't care about fuel efficiency right now. I don't care about anything except closing the distance. For 48 straight hours, I tear through the clouds, leaving a massive vapor trail in the sky behind my 100 square meter adamantine chassis. Inside the secondary room, Elizabeth doesn't say a single word. She just keeps feeding her storm basilisk and polishing her salvaged weapons, feeling the sheer, unadulterated killing intent radiating from my core processor. She knows exactly what we're about to do. I run the simulation of Alaric's face in my databanks over and over again. The arrogant smirk, the way he looked down at me as I bled out in the dirt for him. He thinks his royal blood makes him untouchable. He's about to find out exactly how wrong he is. My localized Manipulse radar suddenly lights up with thousands of concentrated energy signatures. We've arrived. The royal capital's outer bastion sits right on the edge of the sprawling city, heavily fortified with massive stone walls and automated defensive turrets. I aggressively decelerate, pulling my fortress to a dead halt high above the clouds, completely obscuring my massive black metallic frame from the ground below. I adjust my visual sensors and zoom in on the main parade ground. There they are. 5,000 elite vanguard troops standing in perfectly rigid formation. The morning sun reflects off their polished silver armor, making them look like a sea of expensive metal. And right at the front, standing on a heavily elevated white marble podium, is Crown Prince Alaric. He hasn't changed a bit. He's wearing an outrageously expensive set of ceremonial golden armor that has clearly never seen a single day of actual combat. He's pacing back and forth across the podium, looking down at 3 low-ranking officers kneeling on the marble in front of him. I tune my audio receptors to pick up his voice. "You think a scuffed pauldron is acceptable in my presence?" Alaric sneers, kicking one of the kneeling officers directly in the chest. The man falls backward but frantically scrambles right back to his knees, completely terrified. "You represent the crown. You represent me." This level of sloppy discipline is a direct insult to the royal family. Alaric doesn't even hesitate. He waves his hand dismissively at his personal executioners standing to the side. "Take their heads. I won't tolerate trash in my vanguard." The 3 officers immediately start begging, their faces draining of all color. "Please, your highness, it was just a training drill. We fought for you in the border skirmishes." They plead, tears streaming down their faces. Alaric just laughs, turning his back on them. The executioners step forward and swing their heavy broadswords. 3 heads hit the marble podium with a sickening thud. The crowd of 5,000 soldiers flinches, but nobody dares to step out of line. The sheer hypocrisy of it makes my core temperature spike. He talks about honor and discipline while executing his own loyal men for a dirty piece of armor. The man is the biggest coward to ever walk the earth, and he's standing there playing God with their lives. I don't wait another second. I completely cut the power to my camouflage runes and drop directly out of the clouds, casting a massive, terrifying shadow over the entire parade ground. The soldiers instantly break formation, looking up in absolute panic as my 100-ton black adamantine chassis blocks out the sun. Alaric spins around, his smug expression instantly vanishing. He has absolutely no idea who I am. He just sees a massive rogue construct invading his airspace. What is that thing? He screams, his voice cracking violently. He aggressively points his golden sword at my undercarriage. Royal Archmages, bring it down. I want it melted into slag right now. 10 level 45 Royal Archmages stationed around the podium immediately step forward, their staffs glowing with intense red mana. They start chanting in perfect unison, their magical auras linking together to form a massive, concentrated spell matrix. Level 45 Combined Firestorm. The lead mage roars, thrusting his staff toward the sky. A terrifying pillar of superheated magical flames erupts from the ground, rushing straight up at my chassis. The sheer heat distorts the air itself, instantly melting the marble tiles around the mage's feet. The soldiers cheer, fully expecting to see my fortress turn into a molten fireball. I don't even bother activating my kinetic mana shield. I just sit there and let the fire hit me. The massive pillar of flames violently slams directly into my tier 9 adamantine exterior. The fire aggressively washes over my black metallic plating, roaring with insane intensity. Ding. Passive immunity to magic below level 50 engaged. 0 structural damage detected. The flames completely disperse across my hull, failing to leave even a single scorch mark. The mages gasp, sucking in deep breaths of cold air. They drop their staffs, their hands trembling uncontrollably. Impossible. The lead mage shrieks, his eyes widening so far they look like they're going to pop out of his skull. That was a combined level 45 strike. It didn't even scratch the paint. What is that metal? Alaric's face goes completely pale. The arrogant smirk is entirely gone, replaced by pure, unfiltered terror. My turn, I say internally. Ding, 1,000 energy points consume. Activating tier 4 elemental artillery. I completely bypass my standard limestone projectiles and load raw compressed plasma directly into my forward turrets. The turrets aggressively lock onto the front row of Alaric's elite royal guard, the exact same men who just executed those kneeling officers. I fire a rapid, completely unbraked volley. Bright blue streaks of plasma instantly cross the distance and slam directly into the vanguard formation. The impact is completely deafening. The plasma detonates, instantly vaporizing 50 elite guards in a single microsecond. There aren't even bodies left behind, just blackened craters and melted silver slag scattered across the parade ground. Complete and utter panic instantly infects the entire 5,000-man army. The strict formation completely shatters as soldiers scream and trample over each other to run away from the blast zone. And right on cue, Alaric proves exactly who he really is. He doesn't draw his sword. He doesn't shout orders to rally his men. He completely abandons them. Guards, protect me. Give your lives for your prince. He screams, violently shoving 2 of his own commanders directly into the line of fire just to clear a path for himself. He sprints toward a heavily customized, heavily armored teleportation carriage parked right behind the podium. He dives into the carriage, frantically slamming his hand onto the activation crystal on the dashboard. The complex spatial runes carved into the carriage frame start glowing with a bright purple light, preparing to instantly teleport him to the inner palace. He thinks he's getting away again. Not this time. Down in my secondary room, Elizabeth doesn't even wait for a command. She aggressively kicks open the side hatch and points straight at the fleeing prince. Her juvenile storm basilisk leaps onto the edge of the steel doorway, opening its jaws wide. It unleashes a massive, blinding bolt of chain lightning straight down at the parade ground. The raw electrical energy arcs through the air and slams directly into the top of Alaric's carriage right as the spatial matrix attempts to activate. The conflicting magical energies violently crash into each other. The lightning completely short-circuits the spatial runes, causing the entire teleportation matrix to critically fail. The carriage explodes in a shower of purple sparks and shattered wood. Alaric is violently thrown from the wreckage, skipping across the hard dirt like a skipped stone. He violently smashes into the ground with a heavy thud, his expensive golden armor completely dented and covered in mud. He tries to stand up, but his muscles are completely locked up, violently twitching from the residual lightning coursing through his body. He's totally immobilized, crawling on his elbows like a pathetic worm. While Alaric is busy eating dirt, my localized mana pulse radar goes absolutely crazy. It's picking up a massive, unbelievably dense pocket of raw energy buried exactly 50 feet beneath the parade ground, the Bastion's underground armory. I don't hesitate. I aggressively extend my heavy subterranean root tendrils straight down from my undercarriage, launching them like massive spears into the earth. They violently shatter through the marble flooring, tearing through layers of reinforced stone and steel until they breach the main vault. The room is completely packed with thousands of high-grade mana crystals, enchanted broadswords, and crates of refined beast cores. I instantly stab my roots into the stockpiles and activate my extraction protocol. Ding! Mass raw material processing initiated. I aggressively siphon every single drop of magical energy in the vault. The crystals turn to gray dust in seconds. The enchanted weapons lose their glow and rust into useless scrap. Ding. 15,000 energy points acquired. Core system upgrade requirements met, initiating level 10 evolution. A massive, terrifying surge of pure power aggressively floods my core processor. My adamantine plating literally hums with the sheer volume of energy compressing into my systems. Ding. Level 10 reached. Tier 10 spatial lockdown field unlocked. I instantly activate it. I'm not taking any chances. A massive, completely invisible dome of heavy spatial energy aggressively expands from my chassis, instantly covering a 5-mile radius around the outer bastion. The air itself feels noticeably heavier. Any attempt to cast a teleportation spell, open a spatial tier, or use artificial flight magic within this zone is now completely nullified. No one is leaving. I aggressively lower my altitude, hovering just 10 feet above the shattered marble podium. I extrude a massive heavy steel pneumatic arm directly from my forward hull. The mechanical claw shoots forward and violently grabs Alaric by the chest plate of his golden armor, lifting him completely off the dirt. I slam him down hard onto the center of the marble podium, pinning him flat on his back in front of the thousands of surviving soldiers who have stopped running just to watch this happen. Alaric spits up a mouthful of blood, his eyes frantically darting around as the heavy steel claw crushes his chest plate. "Wait, don't kill me," he screams, his voice high-pitched and completely pathetic. "I am the crown prince. I have money. I have the entire royal treasury. I'll give you 1,000,000 gold coins. I'll give you a province. Just let me go." He's bargaining with money. He really thinks wealth can buy him out of this. I aggressively connect my core systems to Elizabeth's biomechanical bracer, utilizing her localized mana manipulation to amplify my audio output. I project my voice across the entire parade ground, making sure the broadcast echoes off the bastion walls, so every single one of his surviving soldiers hears every word. "You want to buy your life with gold?" My synthetic cold voice booms across the courtyard. "Is that how you bought your life 3 years ago at the Blood River ambush? By offering gold to the assassins after you threw your own royal guard to the wolves." Alaric's face instantly drains of all color. His pupils contract sharply. He recognizes the reference. "No, shut up. That's a lie." He frantically screams, desperately clawing at my steel pneumatic arm. I don't let up. I broadcast the exact truth loud and clear. "You looked your captain dead in the eyes, the man who swore to protect you, and you ordered him to hold the line. You said, 'It's your duty to die for me.' And the second he turned to fight, you sprinted for your carriage and abandoned him to take 5 poison blades to the back. You didn't even look back once." The entire parade ground goes completely dead silent. The 5,000 soldiers stare at their prince pinned to the podium, the man who just executed 3 officers for scuffed armor. The whispers instantly start echoing through the ranks. "He abandoned the old guard?" One soldier gasps. "He left his own men to die just to save himself?" Another mutters, dropping his spear in pure disgust. "He's a coward." Alaric's public image, the fake facade of a fearless leader he's spent years building, is completely and utterly destroyed in a matter of seconds. He's crying now, actual tears streaming down his dirty face as his own army looks at him with absolute contempt. I increase the hydraulic pressure in the steel arm. The golden armor begins to aggressively crack, pressing painfully into his ribs. I'm gonna pop him like a blood blister right here in front of everyone. But right before his ribcage snaps, a massive, terrifying energy signature violently spikes on the edge of my radar. Level 60. The capital's central defense array suddenly activates, glowing with a blinding, intense white light that illuminates the entire city. A figure aggressively shoots out from the inner palace, flying at insane speeds until it smashes right into the edge of my spatial lockdown field. He can't teleport inside, so he just hovers right at the boundary. It's the Royal Monarch. He's wearing a full set of Emperor-grade combat gear, and his level 60 aura pressure is so insanely heavy, it literally cracks the stone walls of the bastion just from his presence. Release my son this instant, you rogue piece of scrap. The king's voice booms like a physical shockwave, carrying enough raw power to make his own soldiers fall to their knees in pain. I don't care who he is. I aggressively retract the pneumatic arm, violently dragging the screaming Alaric straight up into my chassis. I throw him directly into my internal holding cell, and the heavy steel hatch slams shut, completely locking him in the dark. I immediately recalibrate my level 10 armaments, spinning up my heavy plasma turrets, and lock my targeting systems directly onto the king's chest. The Royal Monarch doesn't even flinch at the sight of my glowing turrets. He just hovers there in the air, his level 60 aura pressing down so hard the marble tiles beneath me completely shatter into dust. He thinks his level makes him a god. He thinks because he wears the crown, the fundamental rules of combat don't apply to him. He raises his right hand and the air around his palm instantly warps. A massive, concentrated level 60 solar lance manifests right above his head, burning so hot it completely vaporizes the remaining rain clouds in the sky. You dare attack my bloodline? The monarch roars, his voice amplified by raw mana. I am the supreme ruler of this domain. You are nothing but a rogue piece of scrap metal. He thrusts his hand forward. The solar lance shoots down at me with absolute blinding speed. He's aiming dead center at my adamantine roof, fully intending to pierce straight through my core processor. I don't even bother trying to dodge. I don't need to. I access my system interface and immediately recalibrate the kinetic mana shield generator. Ding. Shield parameters adjusted. Refraction mode engaged. The massive beam of pure solar energy slams directly into my energy barrier. The impact is totally deafening, but instead of absorbing the hit, my shield aggressively angles the kinetic force outward. The solar lance violently bounces off my dome, completely redirecting toward the heavily fortified bastion walls surrounding the parade ground. The refracted beam slams into the 60-foot thick stone defenses, instantly melting the ancient barricades into bubbling liquid slag. The shockwave knocks hundreds of vanguard troops flat on their backs. The soldiers gasp, sucking in deep breaths of cold air. Their eyes widen in absolute terror. The king's strongest attack. One of the captains screams, his face completely draining of color. It didn't even leave a scratch on that thing. It just bounced off. The monarch stops hovering and lands heavily on the cracked marble. His arrogant expression completely fractures. He stares at the melted bastion walls, his chest heaving. He realizes right then and there that he can't brute force his way through a tier 9 adamantine hull, so he instantly changes tactics. He drops his glowing hands and straightens his posture, putting on that fake diplomatic mask every royal wears when they want to manipulate someone. Impressive, the monarch says loudly, making sure his voice carries across the courtyard. You possess structural integrity far beyond anything in my royal armory. Let us negotiate. Release my son Alaric to me right now. In exchange, I won't dismantle you. I'll grant you a permanent position as the kingdom's supreme artifact. You'll have unlimited access to our mana reserves and you'll serve directly under the crown. I let out a cold synthetic laugh through my external speakers. A position under the crown. He really thinks I'm some mindless construct eager for a job. I know exactly how the royal family operates. They promise you honor and glory, and the second you turn your back, they feed you to the wolves to save their own skin. That's exactly how I died in my past life. I decide to play his game just to expose him. Terms accepted, I broadcast loudly. I immediately activate my forward adamantine chassis, pulling the heavy steel plates apart with a loud mechanical grind. I expose the internal holding cell directly to the outside air. Inside, Crown Prince Alaric is pinned against the bulkhead, covered in dirt and completely terrified. Father, Alaric shrieks, his voice cracking. Kill it. Melt this thing to the ground. It humiliated me. The monarch doesn't look at his son with relief. He doesn't look like a father trying to save his boy. I scan his physiological reactions. His heart rate doesn't drop, and his pupils contract sharply. He looks at Alaric, then he looks right past him, staring directly at my exposed internal core processor sitting just a few feet behind the prince. The monarch sees an opening. He sees a chance to destroy me from the inside while my armor is parted. Father, get me out of here, Alaric begs, reaching his hands out. The monarch's face goes completely dead. The crown requires sacrifices, my son. Your death will be a testament to the kingdom's survival. The monarch doesn't hesitate for a single microsecond. He instantly channels every drop of his level 60 mana pool and casts his ultimate siege spell. Level 60 Kingdom Cleaver. A massive, concentrated blade of pure destructive energy erupts from his hands, shooting straight toward my open chassis. He's firing right at my core, and Alaric is suspended directly in the line of fire. Alaric's eyes go wide. He completely stops breathing. He finally realizes his own father is using him as acceptable collateral damage. "No! Father, wait!" Alaric screams. He's not going to get off that easily. I'm not letting a spell just hit my core. Ding! Tier 10 spatial lockdown engaged. Absolute area control activated. I instantly freeze the entire spatial dimension inside my chassis. The massive Kingdom Cleaver spell completely halts in mid-air, literally millimeters away from my interior steel plating. The raw energy just vibrates there, completely locked in place by my system authority. While the spell is frozen, I manipulate my internal steel bulkheads. I grab Alaric with a mechanical claw and aggressively shift his position, dropping him directly into the exact center of the spell's trajectory. I make sure he is standing right in front of the frozen energy blade. I look at Alaric through my internal cameras. He's totally frozen in space, but his eyes are darting around in absolute panic. I project my voice directly into his ear. 3 years ago, you sacrificed your royal guard to buy yourself time to run. Today, your father sacrifices you for the exact same reason. The royal bloodline is nothing but cowards. I instantly disengage the spatial freeze. The level 60 Kingdom Cleaver resumes its path at full speed. It slams directly into Crown Prince Alaric. He doesn't even have time to scream. The monarch's own siege spell completely incinerates him. His golden armor melts into liquid, and his body is instantly turned into a cloud of gray ash. The spell hits my core and fizzles out against my adamantine internal shielding. Crown Prince Alaric is dead, destroyed by the very man he begged for salvation. The irony is absolutely perfect. I don't waste a second. I immediately connect to Elizabeth's biomechanical bracer down in the secondary room. "Project it," I tell her. Elizabeth taps her wrist, utilizing her localized mana manipulation to interface with my external projectors. We instantly throw a massive audiovisual mana construct high into the sky above the parade ground. It's a massive, crystal clear playback of what just happened. It replays the monarch looking at his son. It plays his exact words echoing like thunder. "The crown requires sacrifices, my son." It shows the monarch willfully casting a lethal strike directly through his own heir. The entire 5,000-man royal vanguard watches the broadcast. The courtyard goes completely, chillingly silent. These men dedicate their entire lives to protecting the royal family. They swear blood oaths to the crown, and they just watched their supreme ruler execute his own flesh and blood just to score a tactical hit on an enemy. He killed the prince, a heavy armored knight whispers, dropping his shield. He didn't even try to pull him out. He just blasted him. Another soldier spits blood onto the marble floor, his face twisted in pure disgust. If he'll do that to his own son, what the hell is he going to do to us? The realization hits the entire army like a physical shockwave. The strict military discipline completely snaps. A captain in the front row unbuckles his sword belt and lets his weapon crash onto the ground. "I'm done," he says loudly. "I'm not dying for a man who slaughters his own kids." He turns his back on the monarch and walks away. Within seconds, it becomes an absolute avalanche. Thousands of soldiers drop their weapons, clattering of steel hitting the marble echoes across the entire capital. They abandon their posts, completely deserting the parade ground in a massive wave. They refuse to defend the crown. The monarch looks around frantically, his face draining of all color. "Stand your ground. That is a royal order." He screams, his voice cracking with desperation. "I am your king. Come back here and fight." Nobody listens. They don't even look back. The monarch is completely stripped of his army. He's standing all alone in the middle of the ruined courtyard, completely exposed. He realizes he has totally lost control of the situation. He turns around and frantically attempts to retreat toward the inner palace defenses. He wants to hide behind his walls. But down in my secondary room, Elizabeth isn't having it. She kicks open my lower adamantine hatch. "Stop him," she commands. Her juvenile storm basilisk slithers forward, rearing its head back. It opens its jaws and emits a massive, concentrated cloud of paralyzing mist directly at the fleeing king. The mist aggressively washes over the monarch. His level 60 aura tries to fight it off, but his mana is totally depleted from casting the cleaver. The neurotoxin instantly invades his nervous system. The monarch's muscles lock up completely. He trips over his own boots and smashes into the marble pavement with a heavy thud, totally immobilized. He grunts, trying to drag himself forward using his chin. I don't give him the chance. I aggressively spin up my all-terrain grav hover tracks. I drive my massive 100 square meter adamantine chassis straight forward. I drop my altitude, crushing the shattered marble beneath my treads. I position my forward treads directly over the monarch's back. He rolls his eyes up, looking at my black metallic undercarriage descending on him. Wait. The monarch gasps, spitting up a mouthful of blood. I surrender. I yield the throne. I'm not here for your throne, I state bluntly through my speakers. I'm here to clean up the trash. I completely cut the anti-gravity engines and let my full 100-ton weight drop straight down. The adamantine treads slam into the monarch. His emperor-grade combat gear completely crumples like tin foil. I crush him flat against the pavement, ending his life instantly. Ding. Hostile level 60 monarch eliminated. Threat neutralized. I don't stop there. I check my localized mana pulse radar. The inner palace sits just a few hundred yards away, built directly on top of the capital's central lie lines, the kingdom's absolute primary mana reserve. I immediately aggressively extend my subterranean root network deep into the earth. Massive, thick adamantine tendrils tear through the bedrock, plunging straight into the glowing blue ley lines beneath the palace. Ding. Primary mana reserve accessed. Mass raw material extraction initiated. I start siphoning the entire kingdom's energy grid. The raw power violently floods up through my roots and straight into my core processor. The energy numbers on my HUD go absolutely insane. Ding, 10,000 energy points acquired, 20,000 points acquired, 40,000 points, 50,000 energy points acquired. A massive, blinding wave of system light aggressively pulses from my chassis. Ding. Core system upgrade requirements met. Initiating level 11 evolution. Tier 11 Sovereign Citadel catalog unlocked. I don't save a single point. I instantly allocate all 50,000 points into a complete structural overhaul. Expand everything, I command the system. The earth beneath the capital aggressively violently shakes. My 100 square meter chassis starts rapidly growing. The heavy adamantine plating stretches and multiplies. My structural footprint aggressively pushes outward, tearing right through the old palace foundations. I completely dismantle the ancient stone walls of the royal estate, absorbing their raw materials and replacing them with my own indestructible black metal. Massive, towering adamantine spires aggressively shoot up into the sky. Heavy steel gates slam down at the district borders. Automated elemental artillery turrets pop out of every single roof gable. My internal volume expands into an absolutely massive, sprawling fortress complex covering the entire inner district. I am no longer a mobile vehicle. I am a permanent, impenetrable sovereign citadel. The dust finally settles across the capital. The massive black adamantine fortress sits right in the center of the city, completely dominating the skyline. Elizabeth walks out of the internal command room and steps onto my newly formed central balcony overlooking the ruined parade ground. She bends down and picks up the monarch's crushed golden crown from the dirt. She wipes the blood off it with her sleeve. The surviving citizens and the deserted vanguard troops slowly creep back to the edge of the courtyard, looking up at the massive citadel in pure awe. Elizabeth doesn't yell. She doesn't make a grandiose speech. She just holds the crown out over the balcony edge and drops it. The gold hits the marble and completely shatters. The old crown is dead, Elizabeth says, her voice carrying clearly across the silent crowd. There are no more kings. There are no more sacrifices. The crowd looks at her, then looks at the massive automated turrets, tracking their every movement. They don't argue. They just slowly drop to their knees, accepting the new reality. A new government is established right there on the spot, backed by my absolute, overwhelming firepower. Inside my core processor, I cycle through the hundreds of internal camera feeds monitoring my vast city layout. I watch the basilisk sleeping in the new massive thermal incubation wing. I watch Elizabeth standing safely behind my heavy adamantine railings. I remember waking up as a rotting wooden roof in a slum, listening to the rain leak through my shingles. Now I am a level 11 sovereign citadel. I have secured my permanent domain. My enemies are ash in the wind, and Elizabeth will never ever be threatened again. I lock my perimeter defenses, shut down my active weapon systems, and finally let my core processor enter standby mode. Absolute victory.